A catastrophe struck, plunging the world into misery as monsters poured out one after another from gates that appeared without warning. Those who rose to save humanity were the hunters, individuals who awakened power through the system. Unsurprisingly, Ryoga was also one chosen by the system. By conquering gates, their power rose from 1 star up to 7 star. 7 lucky hunters reached that realm thanks to blessings from the stellar seats, formed the 7 great houses, and seized world domination. I am the first person in human history to reach 9 stars without relying on the favor of any stellar seat. To the 7 great houses and those stellar entities, someone like me is considered a threat that could completely shatter the existing order. And now, in the heart of Eastern capital, a city scorched by the flames of hell, they have come to take my life, a 9-star hunter. It was one of the 7 great houses, a magical clan vying for supremacy in the Eurasian region. A Romanov family member had officially appeared. Amid the battle, Ryoga gripped the Chronos watch in his hand with all his remaining strength. His labored breaths echoed through the air. After the fight, both his body and spirit were nearly at their limits. A beam of light shone, and only then did Ryoga reveal the arm that had just been severed. He looked up at the space before him, gritted his teeth, and snarled inside, "Damn you, Dmitri." Across from him, a tall figure suddenly appeared. It was the incarnation of Odin Magic King, Dmitry Andrei Romanov, a 9-star hunter, who fixed a taunting gaze on Ryoga. He haughtily said, "Who would have thought someone who reached 9 stars without a divine patron like you would die?" Ignoring the taunt, Ryoga directly demanded, "What is the real reason you want me dead? Is it because I never received protection from the stellar seats, or because I repeatedly refused to submit to the 7 great houses?" Hearing this, Dmitri burst into delighted laughter before replying, "Consider it both reasons. The stellar seats are screaming to take your life. I have no other choice. If anyone could become strong on their own like you, what meaning would the stellar seats even have? Someone titled a bright king, possessing power on par with the 7 great houses and divine blessings purely through personal strength, is a threat. Besides, the great houses are already exhausted from suppressing each other." He stood there, angered by every word out of the man's mouth. As Dmitri said, he really was a 9-star hunter. Soul Summoner Master Ryoga Chinen could not contain his fury and hissed each retort, "What a bunch of nonsense." Before Ryoga could finish, Dmitri interjected, "As a necromancer, you go against nature's laws. By manipulating corpses, you trample the order of this world. In battles between 9-star individuals, power from the stellar seats determines victory. But you chose filthy power, defying life and death, so the stellar seats rejected you. That is the line separating you and me." Struggling to stand, Ryoga curled a wry smile. "Are you acting arrogant just because Odin's power protects you? Want to know why I've been standing here listening to your babble? I'll show you right now." With that, Ryoga swung his arm and summoned a spell. Instantly, the motionless bones on the ground began to stir. A rustling sound rang out. It was Ryoga's magic, dark necromancy rebirth, the zodiac art, a supreme skill from the realm of the dead. Seeing the regiment of white bones lining up behind him, Dmitri exclaimed in amazement, "A supreme skill sustained by soul. Ah, I didn't expect you to still have that much energy. Very well, I'll return the favor with my strongest magic. O bright king, I will crush your soul." No sooner had the words left his mouth than he forcefully unleashed a stream of spiritual power shooting straight into the sky. Watching the familiar sequence of spells, Ryoga suspected, is he trying to activate Odin's Eye? A Death Realm skill won't hold up against that. Just as he guessed, from above a blazing red eyeball suddenly appeared. Light radiated so brightly it lit up a corner of the sky. This was one of the sealing supreme arts, Odin's Gaze, the ultimate magic of the Red Demon Lord. As soon as the setup finished, Odin's eye blinked with razor speed and fired a powerful beam of spiritual force straight at Ryoga. At that life-or-death moment, he suddenly curled his lips into a pleased grin. "If I'm going to die anyway, might as well bet on this." That provocative act caught Dmitri's eye, making him howl in rage. "You just smiled, didn't you?" Ignoring Dmitri's stunned stare, Ryoga quickly raised the Chronos watch high and absorbed the full force of the enemy's attack. The system screen immediately alerted him to an artifact capable of interfering with time's flow. The Chronos pocket watch had detected the power of a stellar seat. The stellar seat's power invaded the Chronos watch. Conditions to activate complete. Player Ryoga Chinen began the process of rewinding into the past. Time was being rewound from the start. Ryoga thought with delight. The requirements to trigger the Chronos watch are that the owner reach 9 stars and feed the artifact power from a stellar entity. If I don't have the blessing myself, I just need to borrow his power for a bit. At that moment, a tremendous explosion boomed. The unleashed force shook the surrounding space violently. Seeing the scene, Dmitri blurted out dumbfounded, What the hell did you do? That bright king clutched the watch in his hand as Ryoga shouted back in a loud voice. The Odin power you so pride yourself on, I will make very good use of. You and the 7 great houses. In your next life I will crush you all. No sooner had he finished than a ping rang out. The chrono's hand began to rewind toward its limit, and the power within erupted violently. After the silence of the time flow, some moments later Ryoga slowly opened his eyes. Gone was the battlefield chaos. Instead, a smooth white ceiling stared back. He sprang up in a panic, his face showing clear alarm. Ryoga's complexion turned pale, his hand reflexively clamped over his chest. Only then did he manage to sweep his eyes around the room. This is clearly the old house I used to live in. Could it be that I actually succeeded? That bastard dared try to kill me for such a ridiculous reason. Just you wait. At that moment the system screen displayed, Chrono's pocket watch damaged. This artifact is a holy relic with durability 110. It is a treasure left across countless spaces by an ancient stellar entity governing time, and there cannot be 2 of its kind in one world. At this cost, time cannot be rewound again at this moment. Receiving the message, Ryoga couldn't help but smirk. I didn't expect it to work without a covenant with a stellar seat. This hand's mine. 23 years have passed. This is the moment right after I left the orphanage. The screen jumped to a new notification. Player Ryoga Chinen has been chosen by the system. Based on your talents and personal traits, select a suitable profession class. Player Ryoga Chinen, you have been chosen by the system. Based on your innate qualities, decide your profession. 1-star level with stats: Strength 7, Speed 6, Vitality 7, Endurance 5, Mana 110. Innate steadfast mind, your heart will never waver in any situation, granting resistance to all mental attack. Please choose a profession. There are 3 options based on your traits: warrior, mage, cleric. After a long pause, Ryoga considered carefully. It seemed only the most basic classes were available at the start. In my previous life, I picked the magic path without much thought. However, this time there's no need to rush. This time I'll become even stronger and make sure I survive. Until the very last minute. I'll extract every precious bit of information a 9-star hunter once held. Thinking it, he promptly headed to the Natsuhabara Hunter's Market and stepped into the item shop. The moment she saw him, the clerk smiled and greeted, "Welcome, sir. We have swords imported from the Mage Consortium and weapons forged from newly mined materials from the towers." Before she finished, Ryoga cut in and asked, "Do you sell the dark ring?" His abrupt request left her dumbfounded. She blurted out in surprise, "Oh my, sir, that item is cursed." Despite the clerk's warning, Ryoga insisted, "I know that. How much is it?" A while later, satisfied, he left the shop and strolled down the corridor. Ryoga recalled the earlier moment. The clerk had sternly warned, "The shop assumes no responsibility for any loss after the transaction. Do you still really want to buy it?" At her harsh reaction, he just laughed inwardly. Well, her response is reasonable. Normally no one's crazy enough to spend 2 million on a ring that causes all kinds of bad effects. Buying this wiped out half my money. At that moment the system alert arrived. Dark ring, rare grade, durability 50-50. This jewelry is haunted by misty phantoms from the abyss. When worn, the owner will be gnawed by spiritual curses. Taking in the information, Ryoga quickly slipped the ring onto his finger, thinking confidently, "But this item hides a secret no one knows. Whoever can master the curse inside, after wearing the ring, will gain the knowledge and summoning power, the core foundation of a soul summoner made." Feeling the dark aura pouring out, his spirit oddly felt invigorated, and even his gaze grew a little more sinister. Scratchy sounds kept coming, and the surrounding space shifted. Before Ryoga now was an endless gray sky, seeming to squeeze his small figure. Sensing the abnormality, Ryoga tensed and waited. The curse aimed at him spoke up, that familiar hoarse voice rising again. "You monster who controls rotting flesh. Do you really believe you can beat me without the help of the stellar seats? Don't you understand that without divine favor, you can't even harm me? A practitioner of forbidden arts, abandoned by the stars like you. Even if you go back in time to fight again, you'll never defeat me." Faced with Dimitri's barrage of insults and aggressive attack, Ryoga remained unfazed. He curled a lip, completely dismissing him. A notification arrived. Spiritual interference has been blocked. Steadfast mind has activated complete immunity. You have passed the Dark Ring's trial. The summoner mage energy hidden within the ring has awakened. Everything went exactly as he planned, causing him to cheer with glee. The secret to dispelling this ring's curse is not resisting it. Because I held that secret, I became the world's first summoner mage. You think I can't stand against the 7 great houses without the blessings of the stellar seats? Fine, I'll create a stellar seat myself. A god will choose me, a summoner mage. The system screen flashed congratulations. You have passed the Dark Ring's trial, and the summoning power within it has awakened. The item's rank has been upgraded from rare to legendary. Clutching the ring in his hand, Ryoga nodded with satisfaction. All right, let's begin. True to his word, he quickly selected a profession on the prompt when the system requested. Choose your profession. There are 4 paths based on your special traits: warrior, mage, summoner, or cleric. As expected, Ryoga chose to become a summoner, a class that uses corpses and souls as conduits to wield power. Standing before the screen, he read each line of information intently, excitement written all over his face. First profession selection reward. Receive the trait Harbinger of Death, and your mana stat converts to spirit power. With Harbinger of Death, spirit power consumption is reduced by 20% when summoning or maintaining spell. Reading that, Ryoga softly murmured, "Not a bad start at all." Pausing for a moment, he muttered, "But right now I can only use 2 skills." The system screen immediately displayed information about 2 skills. Summon Zombie, level 1, a control spell requiring the user to be a summoner mage or possess the summoner trait. Bone Manipulation, level 1, used to channel energy into bones and control them at will. Reading the familiar lines again, he sighed inwardly. It seems because I rewound time my rank has to start from scratch. Restarting didn't faze Ryoga. He stood there mulling over the summoning knowledge the ring had fed into his brain. Even with skill access, he still couldn't surpass the level and star limits the system imposed. I can grow as strong as 7 stars if I follow the system's rules. However, to reach the ultimate 9-star realm, ordinary methods won't work. Becoming a summoner this early is good, but it's still not enough. Ryoga clenched his fist. Dimitri, I need to find a stellar seat patron so I can defeat him. He immediately set that plan in motion and rushed to the Cronus temple. By then, countless visitors had already gathered around. Upon arriving, Ryoga quickly recalled the legendary War of the Gods. The ancient deities had lost their radiance after being defeated by Zeus and the high gods of Olympus, while some others persisted as stellar seat titans who accepted Olympus' rule, like the sun god Helios. Thinking this over, he paused and quietly observed the void before him for a while. Ryoga lowered his gaze to the cracked Cronus watch in his hand and thought to himself, the true master of this watch must be on a completely different level. All right, let's go meet a fallen god, shall we? He raised the Cronus watch high, then suddenly slammed it down decisively onto the table in front of him. Just as it was about to shatter, a burst of light flared from within. The surrounding space trembled, as if pressed by an invisible force. After a few minutes of disturbance, things finally settled. Instead, Ryoga felt a surge of unexpected excitement as a deep voice resonated. "Who dares be there?" Ryoga flinched slightly and quickly turned his gaze toward the sound's direction. An angry roar echoed. "What bastard dares behave so rudely in front of me?" Facing the god's fury, Ryoga showed no fear. Instead, he boldly grinned with delight. He arrogantly greeted, "Pleased to meet you, deposed king of the Titans, Cronus." Seeing the small figure before him, Cronus paused, his gaze on Ryoga full of suspicion. The watch in his hand flashed, drawing the god's attention. Realizing the situation, Cronus asked in a deep voice, "Kid, are you the one who reversed time?" Ryoga shrugged slightly and replied matter-of-factly, "Exactly what you see." Cronus scanned him, then asked excitedly, "To rewind time successfully, you must have been quite a big name among humans, right? But why did you wake me?" Ryoga didn't answer immediately. He stood silent, studying Cronus. Cronus, the father of Zeus of Olympus, who once swallowed his children because of a prophecy that the Titans would be destroyed. After losing everything to Olympus, he is now a forgotten name. Surely the ember of hatred for Olympus still smolders in his chest. Seizing on the god's intent, Ryoga boldly tempted, "Don't you want to carry out your revenge?" The direct question stunned Cronus. He was so shocked he stammered, "What did you just say?" Riding the momentum, Ryoga quickly proposed, "If you accept becoming my stellar seat patron, I'll help you fulfill that wish." Cronus couldn't help but laugh, his tone dripping contempt. "A lowly human wants to meddle in my revenge. You, who have none of Olympus' power, dare tell me to obey." Faced with the blunt insult, Ryoga said nothing more and tightened his grip on the watch. With all his might he retorted bluntly, "You can verify it yourself. I've reached 9-star level without any blessing, and Zeus is on my list of people to settle with." At that, old resentment surged, and Ryoga clenched his fist. Not just the Romanovs, but the entire 7 great houses who stood by were his enemy. He laid out his offer bluntly. "If I destroy the house that worships the Olympus gods as patrons, the Olympus gods' influence on this earth will vanish." Hearing this, Cronus laughed. "Compared to my revenge, your ambition seems a bit modest. You may have the power to activate my watch, but it's surprising that someone seeking my favor chose the summoner path after reincarnating. I am not compatible with power that defies nature. The essence of a summoner is entirely opposed to my nature." Understanding his concern, Ryoga immediately presented his premeditated plan. As a god of time, that's true, but as an agricultural god, it's different. Depending on ability, a stellar seat contracts with hunters whose origin and nature are similar. Cronus, the god who rules both harvests and time. The scythe, the symbol of harvest, is also the image of the god of death. Harvest and death share a nature, the cycle of life and rebirth. In other words, a challenge to fate. But no sooner had he finished than Cronus flew into a rage. He screamed furiously, "How dare you equate the nature of death with me? Don't be so arrogant, you tiny human." The terrifying force of Cronus' wrath made the already desolate space quake violently. Ryoga immediately panicked and scrambled to appease him. "Now is not the time for you to say things like that. Do you intend to spend the rest of your life stripped of power and fame? If you're willing to remain dominated by the Olympus gods, then go ahead. But I came because I believe you'll choose revenge, even if it means changing your very nature. Join me in restoring our power, and together we'll topple Olympus' summit." Though he boasted outwardly, Ryoga was internally tense enough to burst. "There's no turning back now. If this fails, I'll be stuck with nowhere to go." After a long moment, Cronus finally quelled his rage and suddenly broke into an amused grin. He nodded and spoke, his voice softening slightly. "You are right. I have never let go of thoughts of revenge for even a second. So I will test whether you are worthy to become the instrument of my vengeance. Turning an agricultural god into an entity that defies fate. HMPH, do you know that revering my nature will come with unbearable pain? If you can endure that pain, I will officially become your stellar seat patron." No sooner had he finished than Cronus' power erupted violently, rattling the entire chamber. Taken aback by the suddenness, Ryoga cried out in panic, "Wait, why is this happening so abruptly?" Ignoring his stunned state, Cronus quickly cast the ritual. "I appoint you as my representative, in the role of my harbinger." Hearing this, Ryoga couldn't believe his ears. He stood frozen, stunned into silence. What, a harbinger? A harbinger receives powers as the representative of a stellar seat. The dark attribute of a necromancer and the holy power of a harbinger, two clashing sources of strength, collided violently within his body. "If I faint now, I'll lose any chance of securing a stellar seat patron." Cronus fell silent, watching Ryoga's every expression. The spiritual conflict inside him made him on the verge of collapse. But Ryoga forced himself to endure. A few hours later, the familiar figure strolled out of the temple gate. His newfound swagger now looked nothing like the struggling posture he'd worn while enduring Cronus' trial. Back in Japan, he couldn't contain his excitement and exclaimed, "Japan truly is the best place after all." To his surprise, Cronus appeared at his side. He clicked his tongue approvingly. "Well, has the world really changed that much? Time's stream is indeed something both grand and cruel. Don't you think so?" The contract explained the sudden appearance. The system screen announced, "A new stellar seat has risen in the temple, the Reaper, the giant who challenges the heaven." Seeing his haughty demeanor, Ryoga couldn't help but think wryly, "You act all high and mighty though you can't grant me a blessing right now." Then he reminded him, "Anyway, you've talked enough." But even as he turned away, Ryoga kept thinking. Although Cronus had regained his status as a stellar seat, he had no followers yet and thus hadn't recovered his power or blessings. Still, he looked quite pleased with himself. "I simply forced him into the Death Harbinger template based on general concepts when he returned as a stellar seat. Since he lacks credentials for defying the heavens, we need to start building those now to restore his authority." Ignoring Ryoga's uneasy glance, Cronus unabashedly let his emotions drift after being reborn. "It moves me deep. Because I went to the trouble of making you my harbinger, go forth and spread my fame. Understand." The absurd mission falling from the sky left Ryoga exasperated, plunging him into an unprecedented situation. Cleric and harbinger are both among the highest tier professions. Just when he thought Cronus was channeling power into him, the god had turned a necromancer into a harbinger. Now he possessed the harbinger skill of the White Knight, holy spell efficiency, increased by 30% and no class penalties when using summoning skills. The additional trait lets him switch between holy power and spirit power, and he can use all cleric equipment and skills as well as magic. Life absorption is a type of holy magic that drains a target's vitality to heal or boost the body, carrying holy power tainted by death. He sank into thought. One harbinger, two opposing spiritual forces, holy power and spirit power. He'd never heard of anyone using both at once. Unable to contain his amazement, Ryoga blurted, "Being able to cast both summoning arts and a harbinger's holy rites at the same time is just overwhelmingly off." Hearing that, Cronus buted in, "A harbinger is the representative of a stellar seat. I wouldn't have chosen you without thinking it through." Ryoga laughed and asked delightedly, "Oh, so it was all part of your plan from the start." Praised, Cronus unceremoniously patted his chest. "I was once the king of the gods and yet was having a pleasant chat. Suddenly Ryoga froze, his expression turning serious as he pondered something. He expressed his wish with enthusiasm. Around this time period, an old gate would be the perfect choice. Instantly, the image of an ancient garden flashed in Ryoga's mind. It was the ideal spot to test these new powers. At the hub area, the spatial gate to the training zone had already been activated. Stepping in, Ryoga recalled that these gates connect the present world to other dimensions. They come in two types: mobile gates that vanish after hunters defeat the final boss in Energy Core, and fixed gates that remain permanently at one location. The system screen displayed information about the gate before him: Ancient Garden, type fixed, entry requirement 1 star, scale medium, mana density 52%. Ryoga studied the gate carefully. As a fixed gate, the Ancient Garden was limited to 1 star, making it easy for rookie hunters to access and train. Around the waiting area, other hunters were preparing. Seeing them, Ryoga remembered his scrappy early days. Everyone was busy finding teammates to form parties. I used to be like that too. Lost in memory, someone suddenly called out, startling him to turn. Hey, if you're going solo, want to join our group? Faced with the Yuma group's friendly offer, Ryoga decisively turned away and coolly declined. Thanks, but I'm fine. Hearing that, Yuma awkwardly turned away but politely replied, Ah, I understand. Still, he couldn't help worrying. He looks like a total newbie. Going alone like that could be dangerous, right? Yuka beside him couldn't hide her annoyance and snapped, Why are you worrying? He turned us down himself, so mind your own business. On his side, Ryoga stayed focused on his own goal. He whispered excitedly, At this difficulty I can handle it alone. Time to test the new power. A few minutes later, once he'd entered the interior space, the system announced, You have officially entered the ancient garden. Well acquainted with the place, Ryoga strolled around leisurely. Noticing the unusual quiet, he muttered, This place is way too quiet. Normally something would suddenly jump out and attack. I guess the opening prey this time is. Before he could finish, a skinny monster suddenly lunged at him from behind. Its ferocious look made Ryoga all the more pleased. Definitely a goblin. Seizing the moment, the goblin slashed with a dagger. With nimble technique, Ryoga slipped to the left, narrowly dodging the sharp blade. Missing its mark and losing momentum, the goblin skidded along the ground. Just then, Ryoga's muscular hands shot out, seized the creature's small neck and cast a spell. Thanks for coming all this way to hand over your life. The system screen notified. Innate trait White Knight activated, converting spirit power into holy power. Life absorption, holy magic, effect. Siphons an enemy's vitality to heal or strengthen the body. Attribute, holy power laced with the breath of death. The spell activated. Ryoga quickly sensed. Using holy power feels actually quite similar to spirit power. The more he spoke, the tighter he squeezed, leaving the goblin trembling in pain and despair. In an instant, the monster's life force was drained into Ryoga. As the goblin's body slammed onto the ground, the system displayed, You have drained the goblin's life essence. Your base stats have increased. Ryoga felt the change in his body. Speed +0, 1 strength +0, 1. He cheered with delight. Unbelievable. Just killing them with this skill increases my stats. If each level up grants an extra 5 potential points, then killing 25 goblins is basically another level, isn't it? Seeing Ryoga's bright eyes, Cronus suddenly appeared behind him and smugly said, Contractor, are you pleased with this gift? Ryoga nodded contentedly. Yes, this is truly amazing. Receiving praise for the first time, Cronus excitedly cried, Praise me, worship my greatness. Though slightly reluctant, Ryoga nodded. All right, I have to admit you were right this time. Remembering the task, he murmured, Okay, we've already got a corpse here. Let's begin. No sooner said than done. Ryoga sent a small amount of spirit power into the corpse below and loudly issued the command. Answer my call, rise, undead. At the command, the goblin's arm twitched slightly. The motionless body slowly stirred and heaved itself up, then stood upright under Ryoga's expectant gaze. Upon completion of the summoning, the system displayed, Undead completion rate is very high. All stats increased by 97.28%. Goblin Undead, living race, 1-star rank. Looking at his creation, Ryoga smiled in satisfaction. With this power, it can wreak havoc in the ancient garden. At that moment, a strange noise came from behind. A horde of goblins had somehow crept up, each looking ferocious. The commotion was loud enough to make both of them start and turn around. Seeing them, Ryoga showed his excitement. This is a rare chance to test real combat ability. Go. On command, the goblin undead charged at the 3 goblins with terrifying speed. It quickly closed in and sank its sharp teeth into an opponent's neck. To the other's shock, it slammed the foe to the ground and furiously clawed and tore. Seizing the opportunity, a nearby goblin stabbed the undead hard enough to make veins bulge. Seeing the corpse remain unfazed, they began to hesitate. Seeing this, Ryoga laughed. What's the matter? Afraid because it won't fall down. It's undead. Stab it all you want in the vitals, it won't even notice. No sooner had he finished speaking than he swiftly grabbed the nearest goblin. He hoisted it high and said coldly, "Do you think I'm invisible or something?" Without hesitation, Ryoga activated the White Knight trait. Within seconds, the goblin's life force was drained dry. He coldly tossed it to the ground. Watching this, the remaining goblin trembled in despair. It turned its gaze toward the undead. True to expectations, the undead lunged forward, gaping wide to snatch its prey. Seizing the moment, Ryoga activated life absorption. Let's see if I can siphon vitality from someone already dead. Oh, this still works on corpses. Compatibility is surprisingly high. If that's the case, he needed to speed things up. Another wave of goblins streamed in, making Ryoga think excitedly. Necromancer hunters always have a saying. If you kill the first one, half the plan is already done. After saying that, Ryoga stepped aside and casually released a surge of spirit power, turning the freshly felled bodies into a batch of undead. He shouted, "Obey my command." The system displayed, "Skill undead summon youth." At this point, Ryoga murmured with satisfaction. Creating the first undead is always the hardest challenge. Once you pass that, things get a lot smoother. Watching the undead ranks take shape, Ryoga crooked a smile and smugly murmured, "This is the feeling." Being a necromancer really is the top-tier choice. The undead and goblins clashed. Due to their bodily differences, the undead quickly gained the upper hand. Even when goblins stabbed through their bodies with knives, they felt no pain. Thick black blood flowed from the wounds, yet the undead stood firm as a rock. The goblins recoiled in terror, but it was too late. The undead counterattacked swiftly, pinning and tearing their foes until blood spurted. Standing aside watching the fight, Cronus dryly reminded him, "As my contractor, I expect you to show more solemn dignity when you fight." Ryoga joked back, "You'll get used to it. This is the signature fighting style of a necromancer." At that moment, the system displayed upon completing the final wave, "You have reached the current maximum number of controllable undead, 2020. With the summoning complete, Ryoga slowly withdrew his hand. The goblins that had been slain stirred and rose, ready and waiting for orders like a pack of predators. They charged toward the remaining goblins. At that moment, from afar, a familiar figure shouted loudly. An arrow flew and struck an undead, embedding itself and causing it to howl in pain. Caught off guard, the undead stood dazed and stunned. Seeing this, Ryoga shouted, "Wait, don't lurk, come out here." Exposed, the group slowly stepped out. On seeing him, Yuka and the others asked suspiciously, "Who are you lot?" Cronus, noticing the oddity for the first time, whispered urgently, "Something wrong." Looking at their faces, Ryoga replied with suspicion, "I feel like I've seen them somewhere before. They were the Mirror Hunters." Hearing that, Cronus jumped, the Mirror Hunter duo. Once he confirmed their identities, Ryoga's expression darkened. He ground out each word with venom. "Yes, it's them. The ones who tried to assassinate me in my past life. They were the hunting duo Yuma and Yuka Rendo, famous as the Mirror Pair. They were twin siblings renowned throughout the hunter circle." Ryoga rubbed his chin, smiling with amusement and thinking, "Dealing with these two in my last life was a real hassle. Looking at them now, they don't seem that threatening." He studied the pair curiously. Maybe they're still stuck at 1-star rank. Also, I only remember 2 of them before. Why is there a third person now? Cronus beside him seriously suggested, "Why don't we use this chance to uproot future enemies entirely?" Ryoga silently objected. "Nah, they were just hired for an assassination contract. There's no deep personal grudge between us." Suddenly Yuma asked, "Is that undead creature under your control?" The question reminded Ryoga that necromancers weren't widely known at this time. Ryoga nodded in confirmation. "Exactly, that's my summoned creature." His gaze fell on the red gem, glowing inside the goblin undead, as he thought to himself, "It helps a lot with lugging random loot. After all, most people become hunters to make money." Then he proposed, "Hey, want to do some business with me?" Yuma, a bit surprised, asked back, "What? Why are you suddenly offering that?" With a confident look, Ryoga laid out the deal. "I want to hire you to collect magic stones. Split is 80-20. I'll handle clearing monsters. You guys leisurely pocket the cash." All 3 showed clear concern at his proposal. They huddled to discuss. Yuka nervously warned, "Yuma, don't be stupid, don't trust this strange guy." Haibara agreed, "Exactly. I've never seen a hunter summon undead before." Watching them whisper, Ryoga grew a bit impatient and thought, "Standing here gossiping wastes too much time." After a moment, Yuma turned back, still not fully sure, but said, "All right, we accept. But on condition the profit split is equal 5-5. If split like that, each of us would only get about 1.7 parts." Ryoga waved his hand coldly and confirmed, "Maximum is 70-30. If you don't agree, the negotiation ends here." Yuma reluctantly answered, Fine, I accept. Haibara still asked worriedly in a low voice, do you really trust this decision? Yuma reassured him. Haibara, don't be so fearful. With a determined look he added, trust me, if he truly meant harm, we'd be dead already. In his mind, Yuma judged, look, the guy entered the gate without any weapons and radiates absolute confidence. I'm sure following him will earn far more than usual. Not long after, weary groans echoed through the forest. I can't walk another step. Haibara lay face down on the ground, begging, please let me rest a while. Yuka leaned against a tree, panting. I've reached my limit too. Yuma had just placed the last red gem on the pile of magic stones at his feet. He turned and murmured, from the start I knew he wasn't ordinary, but he really exceeded my expectation. Ryoga dropped the goblin in his hand and said with satisfaction, hey, look. There's a pile of monster corpses that can be cached in just lying over there. He hesitated and asked, can we take a short break to rest? Nearby, the goblin undead Ryoga had summoned kept frantically lunging at its prey. He glanced at the two goblins below. There are still plenty more on this side. Then he looked at Yuma and smiled, explaining, I'm not rushing you, so take your time. The three watched Ryoga's eager face and couldn't help but frown, thinking, unbelievable, he's definitely not an ordinary person. Looking at the goblins strewn across the ground, Ryoga said, seems like the area's been cleaned up pretty well. He checked the system screen before him and planned, now's a good time to review my stats. Ryoga's stats: strength, 7 right arrow 13.1, speed, 6 right arrow 15.3, vitality, 7 right arrow 10, endurance, 5 right arrow 6.5, mana divine power, 10 right arrow 11.3. He smiled with satisfaction. Amazing. My total stat points increased by 21.2 after just 3 hours of clearing. At this growth rate, I'm on par with a level 4 hunter. Life absorption really over-delivered. He announced, my rank has been successfully upgraded. Now let's go and take down the regional boss, shall we? The scene suddenly shifted. A goblin leader sitting above let out an angry roar. Another foolish human has wandered in here. Ryoga appeared confident and sneering. Look at that sight. A dim-witted goblin acting like it's the king of the hill. Yuka frowned and warned, that goblin leader rules this southern area. I think it's best we don't anger it too much. The goblin leader's eyes suddenly glowed as it asserted dominion and ordered, seize that human, make him kneel, and bring him before me immediately. The goblins below received the command and surged forward in overwhelming number. Not letting them run wild, Ryoga ordered his goblin undead. Rend them to pieces until nothing's left but bone fragments. Seeing one of his goblin undead bite its hand, the creature raised its other hand in counterattack. A heavy blow sent red blood spraying everywhere. That strike knocked the undead down, reducing his active summoned creatures to 1920. Seeing this, Ryoga calmly commanded, hear my call. No sooner had he finished than the goblin undead's hand twitched. It slowly stood up as if nothing had happened. System Notice, 2020. Upon rising, the undead quickly counterattacked the enemy's side. As expected, it severed an opponent's arm in the blink of an eye. The three watching gaped in astonishment. Yuma couldn't hide his shock and blurted, what the hell is going on? Even though he has the numbers advantage, is he turning monster corpses into minions? Suddenly, the goblin leader above sprang to its feet. It raised its bone scepter and chanted, Kim Malasalakara, then slammed the scepter into the ground. Info about the bone scepter appeared. The totem of bravery is beginning to empower the goblins. This caused the goblins, under its command, to radiate a mysterious surge of power. The goblin leader grew even more smug and boasted, my totem will cast debuffs on enemies and grant buffs to all allies. Behold the strength of my valiant goblin warrior. Ryoga chuckled lightly and sneered, what nonsense did you just spout? The blunt remark froze the goblin leader's arrogance. The veins on its head bulged. It bit its teeth and shouted angrily, how dare a lowly human touch my sacred totem? Suddenly, a large number of skull-topped bone scepters erupted from the ground. A goblin undead quickly lunged forward and attacked the newly risen bone scepters. Seeing his undead smashing the scepters, Ryoga said, don't dream I'll let you get away with that. Realizing Ryoga had anticipated his move, the goblin leader clenched its bone scepter in irritation. Ryoga grinned provocatively. What's wrong? Feeling a bit powerless, are we? Suddenly, the goblin leader slammed its bone scepter into the ground again. The scepter flared as it cried, O embodiment of madness, rise and appear. Notice, mad magic has been activated. The magic's activation radiated a terrifying pressure, making Yuma, Yuka, and Haibara tremble. Notice the goblin's strength and speed have been increased by 50%. One by one, the goblin undead fell. 1920 right arrow, 1820 right arrow, 1520 right arrow, 1020 right arrow, 820. A slew of undead bodies lay, scattered across the ground. Ryoga calmly assessed. So that scepter was his trump card after all. The goblin leader, pleased, boasted, "See that, human? This is the bone scepter I painstakingly forged by sealing all the goblins' hatred into it." Hearing how the bone scepter worked, Ryoga couldn't help but smile and say, "Oh, so that stick's made of bone." Ryoga's gaze turned murderous as he remarked, "Perfect. Then this'll be a piece of cake." Quickly, he reached out and activated his bone manipulation skill. Suddenly, the goblin leader's scepter trembled violently, and it grabbed it in panic. What the? But sadly, its strength was limited. The scepter flew out of its hand. Ryoga quickly caught the bone scepter. "Notice, the mad magic casting process has been forcibly interrupted." The goblin leader panicked and yelled, What devilry did you just pull?" System notice, the goblins have exited the mad state. Consequently, their strength and speed have dropped sharply. Ryoga raised the bone scepter, grinning with delight and taunting. "What's there to panic about? Go ahead and use your favorite spell, I dare you." The scepter in Ryoga's hand emitted a strange black smoke. The system window popped up, displaying his new skill information. Skill Bone Manipulation LV. 1. Magic System. Restricted to necromancers or those with the corresponding trait. Allows the user to channel energy into bones to manipulate them at will. Ryoga inspected the scepter and laughed with delight. Maybe because it's imbued with lingering hatred, its responsiveness is far better than ordinary bone. He held the scepter out, the corner of his mouth twitching in a smirk as he said, "Here, I'll give it back to you." No sooner had the words left his mouth than the scepter in Ryoga's hand sliced through the air toward the goblin shaman. It stared wide-eyed and cried in horror, "What? Impossible." In the blink of an eye, the sharp blade pierced its throat, ending it decisively. The blade glinted an eerie blue, reflecting the goblin shaman's final moment. Its body immediately crumpled to the ground. At the same time, the system window popped up, activating life absorption. System messages kept rolling in: speed +0.5, strength +0.3, magic +1.3. Ryoga looked at the gains with satisfaction. Since this was a shaman, the stat return is really impressive. Suddenly he froze, as if remembering something. His teammates, seeing him like that, were briefly taken aback. Before anyone could understand what was happening, he bent down and carefully collected the goblin shaman's blood into a small vial. Ryoga gently shook the vial and breathed a sigh of relief. He'd almost forgotten he'd used up most of its blood for life absorption. The thought passed and he sprang up, stowing the vial away and said gravely, "I'll leave the cleanup to you lot." Yuma hesitated, then nodded. "All right, understood." He glanced over the remaining wreckage, feeling uneasy. Do we really have to clean up this entire mess? Before long, a modern city appeared. The blazing sun reflected off every pane of glass on the skyscraper. Ryoga stepped down lightly, swaggering out of the time gate doorway, feeling utterly relaxed. The others followed behind him, but each looked haggard, sighing despondently. They strolled among the crowd as whispers buzzed around them. The amount of magic stones collected here is enormous. Could just 4 people really clear that many monsters? Sounds impossible. Suddenly Ryoga spun around and said casually, "Great job, everyone. Should we bring these stones to the shop in Nasuhabara?" Yuma bluntly replied, "No, to get the best price we should transport them ourselves." He hesitated a bit, then added, "That is, if you really trust us to handle them." Ryoga frowned slightly and asked in a low voice, "You mean I should trust people I just met today?" They looked hurt and nearly in tears at his distant tone. Yuma protested softly, "But we did our best." Ryoga softened and reassured them. "Come on, relax. I was only joking." He folded his arms and looked at them sternly. "Roughly how much could this pile sell for?" Yuma replied calmly. "By a glance, maybe around 6 million yen." Suddenly Ryoga pulled the skull-topped staff out of his bag. Yuma looked at it and said evenly, "However, I think that scepter probably isn't worth much." Ryoga tightened his grip and asked skeptically, "Why do you say that?" Yuma explained calmly, "Because its usage requirements and attributes look rather vague." The system panel immediately appeared. Scepter of Resentment Rarity. Rare. Type Scepter. Restriction usable only by clerics. This is a cursed weapon forged from the accumulated grudges of countless goblins. It grants abundant divine power but erodes the user's mind. Effects: plus 30% divine power, minus 12% divine power consumption. Warning: small chance to cause the Chaos Curse status. Yuma continued to comment, "Even though it boosts divine power a lot, it's absurd if only clerics can use it. Clerics don't usually have the ability to manipulate or control divine power." Meanwhile, Ryoga curled a knowing smirk and quickly asked, "In that case, would you mind handing it over to me?" Yuma looked suspicious. "Wait, are you serious? You mean that?" Ryoga stared him down and nodded firmly. "Yes, just deduct its value from my share when we split the loot." Yuma panicked and hurriedly replied, "No way. Without you we wouldn't have gotten this drop." We'll act like it never dropped and give it to you." He then turned to the others. "What do you think? Any objections?" Haibara shook his head softly and said, "I'll follow your arrangement." Yuka beside him agreed, "I'm fine with it too." At the same time, Ryoga watched them quietly, smiling inwardly with pleasure. "I'm starting to like how this party operates." Then Ryoga turned on his heel and cheerfully said, "Your group's called newbies, right? Let's hunt together again tomorrow." Yuma raised his hand in a clear salute. "Deal." The next day, a dense forest materialized. System notice: you have officially entered the ancient garden space. Ryoga silently cast a spell and watched the goblin undead he'd created charge into the fray. He calmly glanced back and asked nonchalantly, "You all still have the strength to continue?" Behind him, Yuma's team was exhausted. They collapsed amid piles of goblin corpses, panting. Yuma wheezed out, I'm afraid we can't push any further today." He pointed at the bags beside them. "Our packs are full too, there's no more room." Ryoga replied coolly, "Then you should head back first." Yuma panted, "All right." After they left, Ryoga pulled out the skull-top scepter and used it to raise an army of goblin undead. Cronus suddenly appeared before him and asked in a low voice, "Why did you purposely send them back early?" Ryoga feigned surprise. "Was I that obvious?" His gaze then turned sharp and he lowered his voice. "From this moment on, I don't want anyone to witness what I'm about to do." Soon after, they reached the northern area of the ancient garden. The place was unusually gloomy and silent, only the wind whistling through the tree. The bushes before Ryoga trembled, and pairs of red, bloodshot eyes appeared one by one. Suddenly, a swarm of mermen leapt up, spears glinting as they tried to ambush Ryoga from behind. His goblin undead army didn't hold back either. They surged forward, shrieking fiercely. A chaotic brawl erupted. Gradually, the goblin forces were completely overwhelmed by the mermen. Ryoga observed silently, calculating carefully. Since the mermen's stats far outmatched the goblins, this outcome was inevitable. He immediately launched the scepter from his hand, shouting, "Weapon control skill." The scepter shot through the wind and gently pierced a merman's body. The system displayed a notice about a reduced piercing damage effect. The merman laughed triumphantly. Ryoga charged up in anger, delivering a kick that sent the merman flying backward. Then the scepter pinned him to a tree. System notice: the physical piercing damage of the Scepter of Resentment has been enhanced. Ryoga snorted coldly and continued manipulating the scepter to fly, piercing merman after merman. Finally, he reached out and grabbed the scepter, thinking to himself, "Controlling the scepter while maintaining the summoned undead consumes way too much spirit power." His spirit power had dropped sharply. Even so, he still shouted, "Rise up, undead." The mermen were instantly fully under his control. They rose with vacant eyes and lunged to attack their own kind. Dark blue blood splattered everywhere. System chime: level up, level 6. Ryoga watched everything around him and broke into a satisfied grin. "Good. At this rate, I'll soon be back at my peak." He thought of Dmitry Andrei Romanov, trembling with excitement inside. "Just wait, you magic king. I'll settle things with you sooner than you think." The scene shifted to an ancient temple deep in the forest. Ryoga followed Cronus's lead and entered. Behind him marched his army of merman undead. Ryoga produced a green heart and smiled with delight. Cronus asked suspiciously, "Hey contract holder, what exactly are you plotting?" Ryoga didn't bother to turn, sounding irritated. "I need to concentrate, so pipe down a bit." He dripped the goblin shaman's blood onto the merman's dark green heart. The moment the two fluids met, the heart immediately began to beat again, and a powerful surge of magic radiated outward. Ryoga watched excitedly and flashed a wicked smile. "I'll be able to access the hidden area that won't be discovered for years." No sooner had he finished than the system announced, "You have successfully decoded the ancient garden's hidden secret. Initiating transfer to the ancient arena." In no time, Ryoga and the merman undead were teleported to an ancient arena. System message: "You have entered the ancient arena area." Ryoga stepped lightly on the cracked dry earth, feeling ecstatic. Before rebirth, he had never found this place, but at last it had appeared. Suddenly, a time gate door slowly opened. A giant clawed foot of a beast stepped out from within. Ryoga watched silently, a sense of eager anticipation welling up inside him. The system displayed, "Challenge, participant limit 1. Please prove your courage and potential in this trial." Ryoga laughed excitedly. "It's here." He looked at the massive dragonkin before him and cheered inwardly, a brand new prey. System continued, "A dragonkin has appeared. Time limit, 10 minutes. You will receive rewards if you survive until time expires." So the stars of the Pantheon could select the finest hunters. They entrusted the Dragon Legion to create the ancient trial zone. For the challenges held here, elite soldiers of the Dragon Legion were deployed. Now the system quickly displayed a time limit notice, 10 minutes. If you are still alive when time ends, rewards will be given. Cronus cast a judging glance at the dragonkin and cleared his throat. With your strength, you won't even last 10 seconds. I suppose I'll have to start looking for a new saint then. His teasing made Ryoga feel deeply insulted. He scowled in anger and thought, that won't be the case. Even if it belongs to the dragon race, it was probably nerfed to fit 1-star level. Still, I don't think it'll be an easy meal. Without waiting for a command, the dragonkin stomped its foot hard into the ground. Though just warming up, the earth was already trembling noticeably. Just as it prepared to charge, Ryoga urgently raised a hand to stop it. Hold on. I need to tweak them a bit, so wait a moment. Usually the villains have to patiently wait while the protagonist transforms, right? As soon as he finished, he quickly poured more spirit power into the plague zombies behind. Their inner power was rapidly amplified, making their eyes flare with bloodshot veins and ferocity. The system quickly updated the enhancement progress. Venomous corpses, blood toxin, undead modification successful, transformed into plague zombies. When summoning undead, if conditions are met, they will be created as plague zombies. Seeing the rapid change in the plague zombies, Cronus stood aside and praised. Oh, an impromptu tweak. Hearing that, Ryoga said smugly, well, before rebirth, I was a summoner extraordinaire. Done, go. At the declaration, the dragonkin instantly readied itself, excitement clear on its face. It planted its foot and launched. In less than 3 seconds, the dragonkin shot toward Ryoga like an arrow. The plague zombies wouldn't stay put either. At his command, they surged forward to attack. Directly over the dragonkin's head, the plague zombies formed a dense shielding swarm. Before it could react, they lunged in, clawing and tearing with all their might. At the bite site, a thick black slime immediately began to spread outward. Feeling a sharp stab of pain, the dragonkin quickly retaliated. It swung powerful punches at each plague zombie's face, sending toxic goo spraying everywhere. Seeing its hands covered in poisonous goo, the dragonkin grimaced in disgust. The system immediately updated. The substance is toxic acid level 12. Watching the dragonkin fall into the trap, Ryoga sneered inwardly with satisfaction. I converted all the frogmen's strength stats, which doubled after zombification, entirely into poison. Their power and agility dropped, but their toxin is now devastating. Despite being splashed with toxic acid level 12, the dragonkin's thick hide left it unscathed. It immediately unleashed force, knocking the plague zombies' meters away. With weak resilience, they were quickly defeated. Riding the momentum, the dragonkin spun, redirecting its attack straight at Ryoga. It roared savagely and charged like a wild beast. Yet Ryoga stood there leisurely, remarking, withstanding toxic acid is quite the challenge. He then poured spirit power directly into the black scepter, causing its stats to surge. System notice: by channeling spirit power, the defense stat of the Scepter of Resentment will be temporarily increased. Just as the dragonkin's punch was about to hit Ryoga, a shield sprang up in time. Still, he felt the opponent's terrifying might. Its strength should have been halved by the poison. How is it still this strong? After minutes of grappling, the temporary shield failed. A thunderous explosion ripped through the space, unleashing blinding light. Recovering his composure, the dragonkin lunged toward the target. Taking advantage of the opponent's distraction, Ryoga cast a bone magic spell. The Scepter of Resentment was hurled at terrifying speed, embedding in the dragonkin's palm as fresh blood spurted. It howled in pain, its body momentarily paralyzed. Ryoga shouted a command. At that moment, the plague zombies seemed wound up like spring. They swarmed onto the dragonkin, clinging and clawing at it bit by bit. Only then did it manage to steady itself. Though the pain still throbbed, the toxic acid quickly seeped deep, making the dragonkin's whole body tremble violently. Even so, it fought back furiously, raining crushing blows down on the plague zombies' heads until they bled. Its razor claws ripped into each one. In an instant, half of the plague zombies were cut down. Watching that counterattack, Ryoga showed no change in expression. He even thought with glee, fighting until the very end impressive, but it all ends here. As soon as that thought passed, the dragonkin collapsed to its knees. Its body seemed drained of life, utterly unable to continue fighting. At that moment, the spirit power within the Scepter of Resentment also began to dissipate. Ryoga quickly withdrew his spirit power, then silently stepped toward the huge corpse before him. His hands rose slowly. Immediately after, he cast a spell to siphon off every last scrap of life from the dragonkin with relish. The spirit power in use, life absorption. The instant the dragonkin collapsed onto the arena floor, the system screen popped up with a congratulatory message. Ancient Trial Zone completed. Seeing the result of the match, Cronus praised with amusement. You tried to overwhelm a dragonkin with a motley pack of undead. Ryoga cut in quickly. See, I told you I wouldn't die. Then the system suddenly announced, Tenacity Sigil has been imprinted. Tenacity Sigil, 40% reduced stun duration when taking damage, 20% increased mana coordination speed, reduced stun effects when damaged, and improved concentration. Unlike blessings from stars or magic aids, this is a permanent buff, a top-tier sigil. The conquest reward made Ryoga grin in satisfaction. Hess, not bad. But the true reward was something else. The Dragonkin's corpse was premium material for nurturing an undead. With that in mind, he quickly condensed the whole body inside his inventory. Cronus asked, a bit puzzled, what do you intend to do with that corpse? Ryoga didn't hurry to explain, replying enigmatically, I'm never wasting this. I'll make an undead stronger than the sum of its parts. Suddenly remembering something, he fell into thought, but to do that I'll need metallurgical tools. I wonder if that guy has started forging yet. With that thought, Ryoga dashed off to Saitama without hesitation. Following his memories, he quickly traced the research lab's location. Standing there admiring it for a while, Ryoga couldn't help but feel nostalgic. Nothing's changed since before the regression. No sooner had he spoken than a thunderous explosion ripped through the air. The building before him burst into flames, and the front door was blown off. The sudden familiar blast left him helplessly exclaiming, some things really never change, huh? From inside, a tall young man ran out coughing and hacking. The two froze for a long moment upon seeing each other. Once he recognized the other, the corner of Ryoga's mouth twitched into a pleased smirk. He rejoiced inwardly, found him. The man who devised the world's first mass production formula for mid-tier medicines and made his name as Japan's top alchemist, Grand Alchemist Shintani Rinia. Before the other could speak, Ryoga took the initiative to greet him. Hey, got a moment, sorry for barging in. Rinia asked, bewildered. Sure, I don't mind, but who are you? This is my private lab. Ryoga introduced himself confidently. I'm Chinan Ryoga. I came hopping you'd allow me to use your metallurgical equipment. Hearing that, Rinia froze, dumbstruck for a long moment. Seeing this, Ryoga hurried to explain. You don't have to show that scowl on your face. If it's just a simple borrow, neither of us benefit. Mid-tier recovery potions. You're currently working on a formula to mass-produce them, right? Rinia was stunned speechless at Ryoga, blurting out his secret research. How did you know? Without waiting for an answer, Ryoga freely stepped inside, adding, I'll help. Rinia jumped, hurriedly asking, What are you going to do? A short while later, after things calmed, Ryoga had finished his experiment. Looking at the finished product, Rinia's eyes lit up. He was so moved he blurted out, How did you stabilize a vial that was so unstable it looked about to explode? How did you? Rinia's excited expressions amused Ryoga. He thought to himself, well, it's natural he doesn't get it yet. After all, this would have taken him years to discover. Sensing Rinia's curiosity, Ryoga offered, Want to try it? Receiving a nod, he immediately grabbed the scalpel nearby and sliced a deep cut into his wrist, much to the other's shock. Then Ryoga seized the test tube with the freshly made liquid and poured it straight onto the wound. A second later, the cut sealed shut and vanished, as if there'd never been a scratch. He excitedly held his now smooth hands up in front of Rinia. Instantly, Rinia's eyes flashed, his face showing extreme delight. He could hardly believe it and hurriedly confirmed, it really worked. As his hand reached for the vial, Ryoga snatched it back, leaving Rinia's hand dangling midair with a hint of disappointment. Holding the vial up, Ryoga hurriedly asked, curious about the formula. Rinia nodded eagerly. Yes, absolute. Seeing him hooked, Ryoga cleared his throat and set a condition. If so, would you mind doing me a favor? Noticing Rinia's bewildered look, Ryoga explained his plan in detail, clearly enjoying himself. I only came to borrow some alchemy tools. I'll change the terms like this. Come work for me. I'll teach you potion formulas and countless other techniques. In return, profits will be split 60-40. Naturally, I'll take the 60. Watching Rinia's restrained expressions, Ryoga couldn't hide his smug thought. He's already caught in my net. Silence fell. Rinia strained to stare at the miraculous vial as if to find a reason to refuse, but Ryoga had it all calculated. From now on you'll be my servant, no, my part. A moment later, the black ring in his hand suddenly trembled. Spirit energy writhed out, revealing inside the lifeless body of the dragon. Startled, Rinia blurted, What is that? Ryoga replied calmly, I'm a summoner, so I'm turning it into a special undead. If you're that curious, stop peeking and lend a hand. His sly maneuver instantly enraged Rinia, who shouted back, Why should I help? What contract did we sign? I only let you use this space temporarily while I think things over. Seeing this, Ryoga laughed and nodded in agreement. Okay. Seeing Rinia's half-hearted stance, Cronus couldn't help but snap. He's so jittery, you really want to tell him to man up a bit. Ryoga explained, It's understandable, if you look at what he's been through. He had once achieved brilliant successes as a researcher for the country's largest corporation, but his boss stole all the credit. After that, he was ultimately forced to resign, so it's no wonder he no longer trusts people. Hearing this, Cronus felt some sympathy but couldn't help reproaching. Honestly, the human world is nothing but betrayal and blind greed. Ryoga chimed in casually. Gods aren't much different. Then he leaned toward Rinya and asked softly, "You're hesitating to sign because you don't fully know my true abilities, right? If so, why not give me a hand and see for yourself?" Hearing that, Rinya paused, his mind beginning to waver. After a moment he agreed, saying quietly, "All right, let's get to brewing." Ryoga carefully measured each ingredient. First, he melted 5 A-grade mana stones at a ratio of 42%. A few seconds later, the finished component was handed over by Rinya. The speed pleased Ryoga, who thought to himself, "Oh, fast, he's the right man for the job." At this, Rinya couldn't contain his curiosity and asked quietly, "By the way, what are you going to do with that corpse?" Ryoga didn't answer immediately and focused on preparing the solution. Using the Shintani fluid they had just made as a catalyst, he inscribed formulas onto the bones and poured curses into them to enhance the undead's combat abilities. He had to layer formulas and curses on top of each other continuously. He repeated that process again and again. After a period of relentless brewing, with Rinya hustling to assist, the enhancement of the Dragonkin corpse was officially complete. Ryoga remarked with satisfaction, "Faster than I thought. It only took 3 days." Conversely, Rinya was exhausted to the point of collapse and complained loudly, 3 days already, damn." Staring at the extraordinary man before him, Rinya thought in shock, "Who on earth is he? I never expected a 1-star hunter could use mana to restart the heart of a corpse. His methods are insane, but his skills are definitely the real deal." After thinking it through, Rinya suddenly speaks up, 60-40. "I accept your proposal." Ryoga is a bit surprised and asks back, "You're sure?" Rinya answers firmly without hesitation. "If I were alone, it would take me 2 years to complete a single intermediate recovery potion. But with you, it's a different story. If this helps my research, I agree." Hearing the other's admiration, the corners of Ryoga's mouth curl up in satisfaction. Stepping closer, he says firmly, "Then I look forward to working with you as my exclusive alchemist and servant." Rinya replies confidently, "Yes." Although still a bit wary, he feels as if he just read Ryoga's mind. Completing the agreement, Ryoga carefully considers. The only thing left is to find a soul to act as the core for the Dragon Man. Thinking this, he pulls out his phone and dials a number. After a long ring, the person on the other end picks up. Ryoga quickly speaks, "Hello, I received the payment. I didn't expect you to transfer every last cent like that. So, would you like to take on another job?" At the same time, near the border, the group of recruits has also gathered in full force at Ryoga's invitation. Yuma eagerly asks, "Did you call us?" Surveying the space in front of him, Ryoga clears his throat and says, "In my opinion, you can drop that stance." The blunt criticism makes the group feel slightly embarrassed as they answer, "Yes." Following Ryoga, Yuma asks curiously, "But why come to such a dangerous place? Ever since the northern gate was breached, this area should still be crawling with monsters." Ryoga leaves a cryptic answer, "I just want to visit an old acquaintance, that's all." Saying that, he starts searching around. "Forgotten it here, huh?" Sensing the unusual atmosphere, the recruits immediately go on high alert. Opposite them, a large foot suddenly appears. The loud noise makes everyone turn their eyes simultaneously. Recognizing the monster in front of them, the recruits scream, panic clearly visible in their eyes. "That's a 2-star orc. That's dangerous, China." Their panic makes Ryoga laugh to himself. "They still don't trust my strength. I'll take this chance to test out these processed bones." Thinking this, he pulls out a processed bone, a masterpiece created by crafting bones possessed by spirits into magical tools. Without hesitation, Ryoga boldly chants the bone magic spell. The bone in his hand suddenly launches, rushing toward the 2-star orc, which instinctively goes on guard. Immediately after, it raises its spear high, aggressively throwing it directly at Ryoga. The spear flies with a whistle, the air itself tearing with a terrifying sound. Faced with the 2-star orc's aggression, Ryoga doesn't flinch, instead casually clicking his tongue. "So that's how it is. Too bad for you." Finishing his sentence, Ryoga flicks his hand, swinging the bone forward, which accurately deflects the spear's trajectory to the side. It zooms straight toward the 2-star orc and pins deeply into its shoulder, causing it to bleed. Ryoga smirked, "I aimed for the heart. You're tougher than I thought." Fighting through the pain, the 2nd-grade orc used all his remaining strength to grasp the handle of the bone shard and pull it out. It furiously threw the bone aside, its wound still bleeding with a pungent scent like a ferocious wild beast. The 2nd-grade orc roared and lunged at Ryoga in a rage as the system screen flashed a warning, and the battle continued. It clenched its hand into a fist, and swung it forward in a frenzy. A thunderous explosion erupted, momentarily obscuring their vision. Hidden behind the smoke, Yuma suddenly charged forward, perfectly blocking the opponent's attack with his magic shield, shouting, "Perfect timing." Ryoga immediately entered a combat stance, a clear glint of killing intent flashing in his eyes. Without a word, Ryoga unleashed a series of reinforced bones to counterattack. How about 3 at once? The bone art flew forward, streaking through the air, while the second-grade orc stood there, stunned. Dull thuds followed by the orc's painful roars echoed through the quiet space. In less than a minute, the poison seeped into its bone marrow, causing its entire body to collapse backward before it could even utter a rebuttal. Witnessing the scene, Yuma screamed in horror. "You defeated a second-grade orc." Ryoga immediately grew alert. "Don't just stand there, keep moving. This is when the real work begins." Yuma asked blankly, but didn't you say you were just visiting? Are you sure we're going the right way?" While casting his control spell, Ryoga replied, "Yeah." In less than 3 minutes, the first-grade zombie was summoned from the remains of the second-grade orc, standing obediently behind Ryoga, awaiting order. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "They are inside the orc village." Facing the blank stares of the rookies, Ryoga turned his head slightly, his voice dropping low. "Besides, we can earn some extra money over there. Isn't that pretty great? Do you agree?" Intimidated by his threatening demeanor, the group obediently followed behind him. As they entered the orc village, the atmosphere suddenly became strangely gloomy. Heavy thuds echoed one after another as orcs quietly collapsed to the ground, as if swept away by something. Ryoga stood there watching the orcs with indifference, while his strength and stamina continued to rise, and upon reaching the upgrade threshold, the system flashed a message. "You have leveled up to level 13. You have exceeded the stat absorption limit from a single race. You can no longer absorb stats from this race." Looking at the limit notification, Ryoga's mood dampened slightly, and he thought to himself, well, it would have been strange if it were infinite. Ryoga looked up at the sunset, feeling satisfied, and said, "I think that's enough for today. Let's set up camp." Before he finished speaking, the rookies across from him had already set up tents neatly, and were even sitting around a campfire, carefree, snacking on delicious grilled meat. Seeing their fiery enjoyment, Ryoga smirked in praise. "You're well prepared." Haibara responded eagerly. "Well, it is the 3rd day after all." Enjoying a hearty dinner, Ryoga announced, "My stats have increased quite a bit, so tomorrow we'll head toward the village." The 3 rookies immediately responded in unison. "Understood. Okay, roger that." A while later, as it was time to rest, the group grew excited, with Haibara grinning. "Tonight's night watch is up to you guys." Yuka added happily, "See you later." Thus, the zombies obediently took turns standing guard throughout the night for the group, while the 3 rookies, exhausted, fell into a deep sleep in less than 5 minutes. Meanwhile, on a nearby cliff, Ryoga watched the moon in deep contemplation, carefully reviewing. "My level has increased. It seems to be the time to read the newly unlocked knowledge." Thinking this, Ryoga immediately entered the library, where the system screen displayed, "Accessing Knowledge Library. You can view the knowledge left behind by the previous Lord of Death." Standing before the massive collection, Ryoga couldn't hold back his excitement and grabbed the nearest book. He guessed he still couldn't read the content due to system restrictions, but as he opened the first page, an alert sounded. "You do not have permission to view this knowledge. Requires level 45 or higher." With his current level, the high-level summoning spell books were inaccessible to Ryoga, and he could only sadly look at the beginner content, which frustrated him. So annoying. "Guides for rank 1 while I've reached rank 9. Well, I'll have to read it anyway." Thus, Ryoga grabbed a book for beginner summoning mages to study. He carefully read every line, as if afraid to miss anything crucial. Suddenly, Ryoga paused, his eyes gleaming as they remained fixed on the page, and the system notified, "You have acquired a new skill." Time slipped away quickly, and the next morning, as the sun emerged, the 2 rookies were still fast asleep. Seeing this, Yuma urged them, "It's morning, wake up." A large shadow suddenly loomed over them, blocking part of the light right in front of him. Haibara opened his eyes dreamily, only to be met by a massive, aggressive zombie staring at him as if to devour him whole. Haibara sat up in a panic, involuntarily retreating in fear, and Ryoga reassured him, "You see it every day, aren't you overreacting?" Yuma justified, "But it looks completely different from yesterday. It doesn't just have bone armor, has its body grown much larger too." Hearing Yuma's observant assessment, Ryoga chuckled and nodded. "Yeah, I made some adjustments." At that moment, the entire undead army took on a new appearance after Ryoga's upgrades the previous night. Armored zombie, race, undead trait. A zombie possessing superhuman strength with bone armor covering its body, boasting overwhelming power and stamina. Abilities: bone armor, transforms bones into wearable armor. writhing flesh, allows manipulation of the flesh attached to the corpse. Preparations were complete, and Ryoga urged them, time to head to the orc village. Without hesitation, the group and the zombie army set off immediately. They headed straight toward the distant village, every one of them clearly determined. After a long journey, the orc colony finally appeared before them. Upon sensing movement, the orcs shouted a warning, enemies approaching. Following the order, the orcs immediately charged out to form a defensive line, blocking the entrance. Before they could attack, Ryoga proactively unleashed his bone art. The bone staff flew forward, powerfully piercing through the sturdy shields of the second-grade orc. A loud crash rang out. The overwhelming power of the bone art knocked them back. Ryoga quickly retrieved the bone, his cold gaze scanning them before he bluntly ordered, "Stop making so much noise." The air fell silent instantly, as the orc stood there, silently digesting Ryoga's bold declaration of war. Unable to hold back his anger, the orc leader roared furiously, his whole body emitting an incredibly eerie killing intent. It was their turn to counterattack. Bows were raised, aimed straight at the intruder. At the command, dark arrows were fired repeatedly like a rain of arrows. The rookie group didn't just stand still, as Yuma quickly raised his shield to defend, while Yuka and Haibara used their swords to deflect every arrow. Seeing the rain of arrows thinning, Yuka seized the opportunity to retaliate, shouting loudly, "Fire arrow." The crossbow in her hand unleashed its power, firing a volley of flaming arrows that swarmed the entire orc group. The arrows pierced the chests of every orc, leaving them no time to react. Cronus suddenly appeared, leaning close to Ryoga's ear to whisper, "Not bad, they're useful too." Ryoga stood with his arms crossed, watching them with satisfaction. That's right, from now on they'll develop even more. After taking losses, the orcs immediately counterattacked, and the leader shouted as it charged. On this side, Ryoga briefly said, "Go, armored zombie." They eagerly rushed into battle, delivering powerful punches directly into their opponents' faces. The burst of power sent the orcs flying several meters away. Seeing the superior results, Ryoga couldn't be more satisfied. "Better than I expected. Reading those books in the knowledge library last night was worth the effort." The more they fought, the more energized the armored zombies became, swarming the orcs, driving them into a corner, and fiercely finishing them off one by one. Despite the superior power, the numbers were vastly different. The orc's axe swung hard at the armored zombie, causing significant damage to the armor, and the system immediately warned. The armored zombie's armor has been damaged, durability reduced, defense reduced by 15%. Seeing the critical situation, Ryoga quickly reinforced his forces, shouting, "Bone armor." Instantly, the damaged armor was restored. Armored zombie's armor has been repaired. Durability increased by 20%. Still unable to overwhelm them, Ryoga continued to channel spiritual power as the newly summoned writhing flesh tore through the air, latching onto the orcs. They struggled to writhe, and the poison secreted from within caused the orcs to scream in agony. The scene caught Yuma's eye, leading him to exclaim, "He isn't just strong. The way he uses his skills is on an entirely different level." The laid orc stumbled forward. On the ground, those unable to withstand the toxins gradually faded away, while the leader alone fought back. Suddenly, it exploded with rage. Its milky eyes turned bloodshot, its muscles bulged, and its whole body exuded an eerie killing intent as the system flashed a series of warnings. Berserk state activated, warning, evolving into a special variant danger level. Watching the monster's fierce momentum, Ryoga was not afraid but excitedly shouted, "Heth, finally." The weight was exhausting. The monster gave a loud roar, and the axe in its hand was aimed straight at Ryoga. He just smirked in response, bone art. From Ryoga's fingertips, a series of bones were unleashed. They struck the monster's body repeatedly, with one bone art hitting its weak spot perfectly. The attack forced the zombie to kneel to the ground. It painfully tried to pull the bone out of its body. Unfortunately, Ryoga wouldn't have it. Hey, I won't let you do that." The system sound played, mana minus 25%. Continuous drain effect activated. The bone shard pierced deeper into the zombie. Ryoga didn't even forget to taunt, "You're not the only one about to die, don't be so pessimistic." The system continued to notify, continuous drain effect activated, mana minus 40%. In Ryoga's mind, he was agonizingly thinking, controlling 6 bones at once really drains mana like crazy, but if one bone stuck in it falls out, it will start moving again. I have to pierce its heart in one strike. Thinking and acting, he poured all his strength into the bone art skill, his drain increasing significantly. Continuous drain effect activated, mana minus 68%. The result was the monster's desperate scream. After a struggle, the monster was finally destroyed. Ryoga panted, staring directly at it. He reached his arm toward the undead and activated life absorption, A powerful stream of energy was absorbed by Ryoga, mana recovering 74%. A moment later, he was quite satisfied with the recovery amount. Suddenly, there was a noise behind him. The remaining zombies screamed in panic. Run. He turned back. Do you think I'll let you escape that easily? The next second, Ryoga unleashed the writhing flesh skill. Just like that, they fell one by one, the zombies lying motionless on the spot, while the monster from before became the one to finish them off. Fresh red blood splattered everywhere. The sunset slowly descended, the sky turned orange, and now only the pile of zombie corpses remained on the battle. The rookies looked at the pile of items that had dropped, unsure of how much they were worth. But Ryoga ignored them, saying, "This is what's truly valuable." The system quickly provided information. Blood axe grade, rare type, axe durability, 666-666, an axe forged from refined blood and enchanted to amplify the user's power. The more blood it absorbs, the stronger it becomes. After reading, Ryoga felt even more satisfied with this weapon. Clearing out that orc village was truly worth the effort. He handed the axe to Yuma. "Yuma, I'm leaving this with you. Keep the collected items safe." Yuma took it and assured him, "Okay, we will collect all the magic stones. You should get some rest." Ryoga turned to leave, responding, "Yeah, I'm counting on you." After some time, Ryoga reached his destination. Before his eyes was a giant ancient tree. "Found you." Ryoga looked up seriously, speaking, "Come out, let's have a chat." However, the withered tree didn't respond. Ryoga sighed helplessly, his eyes burning with fire as his hand gripped the bone tightly. If things have come to this, he didn't hesitate to swing the staff directly at the tree trunk. Ryoga calmly observed the tree's movement, thinking, whether they are stars or ghosts, do I really need to be so harsh with all of them? And indeed, inside the tree, a creature was hidden. "Who are you?" Ryoga smirked, happily greeting, "It's an honor to meet you." He clearly knew the identity of that dark shadow, Sora Kashiwagi, the magic duelist. He opened his mouth, his voice low. "How do you know my name?" Ryoga nonchalantly showered him with praise. "Why wouldn't I? You are the hero who guarded the front lines 35 years ago to stop the wave of monsters from flooding into the south." In his mind, Ryoga was remembering. Before the regression, he had once turned him into an undead, and the two of them had fought side by side, so how could he forget? He added, "Japan exists today thanks to warriors like you. There's even a monument erected so no one will ever forget that day." It was a story told to this day. A powerful figure who became famous on the front lines in the early days of the catastrophe, Sora Kashiwagi, known for the unique abilities of a magic duelist, possessing innate talent in both martial arts and magic. Kashiwagi was delighted to hear the legends about himself. "It turns out my death wasn't entirely in vain." Suddenly, Ryoga's mood dampened. Of course, though not every name is remembered. He changed his attitude. "Was that your intention?" A question from Ryoga made Kashiwaga's eyes widen. "Do you remember Naruhito Bakugo, the vice president of the Aragiri Guild? In the past, there was a fire that burned the entire forest." Kashiwagi at that time kept shouting over the radio, requesting reinforcements, requesting reinforcements. He urgently provided information. There are still civilians trapped in the southern agricultural area. His teammate at the time couldn't take it anymore. "Damn it, I can't hold them back any longer. Send reinforcements immediately." The robotic radio voice replied, "No reserve forces available, cannot send assistance." Kashiwagi stared silently, followed by a series of questions. "Were you planning to use us as bait from the beginning? You lied that the South was still safe just to push us out there, only so you could sneak out through the North Gate, didn't you?" On the other end of the line, a laugh responded. "Thanks to you, we bought enough time to regroup our main forces. We were able to withdraw through the North Gate without encountering any obstacles." Kashiwagi's voice grew colder. "You pushed us out there, knowing full well that civilians were still left behind, didn't you? Because you had leverage over us, knowing we would never abandon them, right?" A voice slowly rang out. "Don't be so gloomy. Thanks to this, Aragiri will be known as the heroes who stopped the wave. Though obviously, that glory is reserved only for those of us who survive." Kashiwagi couldn't bear to hear the rest. "If you live, you are a hero. If you die, it's just the end." Meanwhile, the other civilians were struggling against the monster. Fortunately, the people were rescued just in time. The zombie was sent flying far away. Kashiwagi turned his head and shouted orders to the other soldiers. "Protect the civilians while evacuating the area." His comrades exclaimed in surprise, but by then he didn't care about anything else. "Hurry up, that's an order." Ending the flashback, Ryoga's voice sounded steady. "Naruhito Bakugo, the man who pushed you to your death, became a hero." He calmly exposed the secret behind the curtain. Meanwhile, all records related to you had been wiped clean. Ryoga revealed a regretful expression. "It's truly a tragedy. You were the one who sacrificed, yet someone else swooped in and took all the glory. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to rest in peace. If it were me, I'd rather rise from the dead just to collect this blood debt. Those words made Kashiwagi angry, asking directly, "That's enough. What is your goal?" His rage made Ryoga smile. He suddenly made an offer that left Kashiwagi stunned. "I will help you take your revenge." Ryoga asked with full sincerity, "How about you form a contract with me and become an undead?" Immediately after, the ring on Ryoga's hand glowed. He quickly took something out and said, "I've already prepared a vessel for your soul to inhabit." Kashiwagi stood silently, staring intently at the corpse. Then he slowly opened his mouth. "In my current state, my desire for revenge has never cooled. I have no reason to refuse your offer. But I have one condition." He paused for a moment before continuing, "Do whatever you want, but I will not harm the innocent." Those words made Ryoga nostalgic. "You set the exact same condition as before I regressed, so your core nature really hasn't changed at all." He felt full of admiration for the soul in front of him, just as expected of a hero. Ryoga looked straight into his eyes and assured him, "Understood, I promise." Seeing this, Kashiwagi nodded seriously. "Very well, I will become your undead." His mysterious black hue gradually shifted to red and white, then eventually to pure white. "You have obtained ownership of the shackled soul, Sora Kashiwagi." Ryoga suddenly recalled his life before the regression. Back then, he had Kashiwagi inhabit a skeleton knight and pushed him to become an unprecedented Hell Knight. Even then, he sometimes wondered what would have happened if he had given him a stronger body from the start. Returning to the present, Cronus said with satisfaction, "Truly a masterpiece." He slowly felt his new body. "I see. That's why you enhanced this corpse beforehand. Did you plan this far ahead?" The detailed information panel appeared. Mystic Ancient Dragon Incomplete Race 4-star Undead Strength 205 Magic 221 Agility 143 Stamina 176 Durability 180 Innate Talent Unique Magic Warrior Godslaying Eyes S Immortal Entity B Limit Breaker B Tactical Skills A Dark Battle Aura B Martial Arts C Dark Magic Arrow D. Special note: this immortal entity can grow. As the soul develops, it will be able to unlock more hidden powers from this body. Ryoga looked at that mountain of information, feeling ecstatic. Perfect. In his past life, he didn't have these talents, especially the unique magic warrior talent. You possess the aptitude of both a warrior and a mage. As your stats increase, your spirit will increase as well. When spirit increases, a random stat will be enhanced. You can learn and use warrior and mage skills simultaneously without any penalty. He finished reading and understood immediately. So the magic warrior talent was inherited as well. The next second, Ryoga changed his expression and asked coldly, "How's the body?" Kashiwagi tried moving a little and shared his thoughts. "Not bad, though it's still a grade lower than when I was alive." The system quickly introduced his new identity, Undead Creation, Mystic Ancient Dragon, Incomplete. Ryoga pondered those words. It turned out it was considered incomplete because he had only copied the concept of an ancient dragon using curse formulas. Yet he felt satisfied with the present. After all, this was a much better starting point than last time. This is more than enough. A moment later, Ryoga turned to leave. "Let's go, minion." The address minion made Kashiwagi indignant. Refusing to move, Ryoga turned back and asked, "What's wrong?" He expressed his thoughts. "Personally, I don't really like the term minion." Ryoga wondered, "Then do you want me to call you by your real name?" But Kashiwagi refused immediately. "I've already thrown that name away." Ryoga frowned, complaining, "You're a bit annoying, you know that." In his head, he seriously considered. He used to be much quieter. Could his personality have changed too? Kashiwagi replied calmly, "I want a name that makes others terrified just by hearing it, but I can't think of any good ones." Ryoga suggested, "What about Fafnir, the dragon from Norse mythology?" He replied uncomfortably, "Don't do that to me." He tried another, Black Dragon, too generic. Ryoga became annoyed. "Tiamat, that's a bit much." Finally, he couldn't hold back and blurted out, "Then let's just call you Giant Serpent." And once again, Kashiwagi refused. Ryoga's irritation grew uncontrollable. "Should I punch this name for once?" Finally, after a while, he conceded, "Now that I think about it, the first one was the best, Fafnir." That made Ryoga much less headache-prone. "All right, then Fafnir, let's get going." Suddenly, Kashiwagi panicked and shouted, "Wait, I'm naked, brother." Without waiting for a reply, he looked around, quickly grabbing a piece of cloth from a tattered tent and wrapping it tightly around his body. "You better now." He became more confident and walked forward proudly. "Let's go then." That series of actions made Ryoga only have question marks in his head. Is this his true self? Night gradually fell. A shout of excitement echoed throughout the house. "Huh, what's that?" Rinya shouted excitedly. "The corpse in the vat of solution is moving." Ryoga quickly explained it to him, but Rinya was too excited to hear a word. "Amazing. Amazing, I have to learn this. Kashiwagi couldn't stand that excitement and asked Ryoga, creepy, can I punch him? The reply was Ryoga's cold refusal. No, he is my partner. Suddenly, someone called Ryoga's name. Yuma's friendly group reported, we're heading back to Tokyo to reorganize our gear. Ryoga didn't have much to say. All right, I understand. A while later, Ryoga summoned the ring. From it emerged the corpse of the monster he had defeated. He sat down to assess the situation. What should I create from the orc leader's corpse? Seeing that, Rinya sat down as well to inquire, what's next? Ryoga curled his lips and asked back, curious. That smile made Rinya feel uneasy, and he quickly waved his hand. Not really, not at all. The last time we mixed herbs, my hands almost died. But Rinya couldn't overcome his own curiosity. He worked honestly while thinking to himself, he's always beyond my predictions. Of course I'm curious. Turning to Ryoga, who was currently dissecting the corpse and separating the flesh. The monster's body gradually dissolved. Cronus appeared out of nowhere, wondering, oh, making an undead. Ryoga replied in his head, you can never have too much firepower. The system notification appeared. Skeleton completion rate is high. All stats increased by 100%. He reached behind and ordered extraction. Rinya immediately handed him a vial of medicine. When the drop fell, the system rang out. Stable quality is affecting the skeleton creation process. The skeleton's attributes have been specialized toward defense. Hearing the notification, Ryoga felt amused. Oh, this one is pretty good as a bodyguard. Very quickly, the skeleton stood up. Undead Bone Guard 2-star rank. He stood in front of the Bone Guard and instructed, later, when I use the life absorption skill, you must take care to protect me carefully. Remember that. It nodded quickly, making Ryoga satisfied. Good, very good, keep doing that. Rinya finally had time to look at it. Why is it bones this time? Ryoga modestly stated the reason. Bones have many advantages. They are lightweight and never rot even without processing. In reality, Ryoga's nature is still a capitalist. Unlike zombies which have time limits, as long as he keeps providing souls, he can work these skeletons to exhaustion. Life absorption is a melee skill, so I need a bodyguard whenever I cast it. That deep thought made Rinya admire him. This guy doesn't just create skeletons. He's even thought about maintaining them in the long run. I never get tired of watching him. Afterward, Ryoga left the Bone Guard with him. Rinya, I have something urgent to do, so I'm leaving it to you to take care of. Rinya asked in confusion, where are you going at this hour? Ryoga calmly revealed, to the Pantheon. I just received a notification that I need to go receive holy magic because I just leveled up. Rinya froze for a moment. A moment later, he restarted. What? Holy magic? Wait a minute. What do you mean? He couldn't imagine it. Are you a priest? He sighed and replied calmly. Actually, I'm a rather devout believer. Rinya shouted, clutching his head and trying his best to deny it. No way, absolutely not, that's impossible. Even if this world were to be turned upside down. Seeing his stubbornness, Ryoga thought helplessly, it's true. Afterward, he seriously asked, have you finished registering the patent for the intermediate potion? Rinya nodded in confirmation. Yes, we can start the review process soon. Ryoga nodded and exclaimed, that's fast. Rinya also responded excitedly. The longer we wait, the more competitors appear. I'm not the type to procrastinate. He frowned, his face showing a bit of speculation. The only problem is promotion. The exhibition isn't until next year. Ryoga finished listening and said decisively, if so, give me a few bottles. I'll advertise for you if I get the chance. Rinya didn't hesitate, taking out a bottle and giving it to him. I'll leave it to you. Ryoga held the bottle in his hand with a very satisfied expression. If this succeeds, we'll earn a huge profit. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but laugh in ecstasy. In the end, it really is money that makes the world go round. Rinya saw that eerie smile and frowned, wondering, is he really a priest? In another aspect, the temple suddenly appeared after the great catastrophe. Most people who come here gather to receive divine skills and blessings from the stars. Ryoga had just arrived and clearly felt the special atmosphere. Cronus beside him exclaimed, what a worldly-smelling place. Ryoga walked along the road while pondering. The most worldly people are the stars, those who always demand offerings from their followers. At this moment, when he arrived in front of a mysterious building, Cronus looked around and sighed. But I don't feel any divine presence from these relics. Ryoga suddenly wondered, why would people leave something so valuable lying on the ground? He breathed heavily with fatigue, striding and speaking. Damn it, is there really no escalator or elevator here? He looked up at the towering tower and said, do they mean we need to show our sincerity to meet their great gods? We still have a long way to go. The path to the gods has 108 steps. Cronus listened and sighed. That's really harsh. Ryoga said while breathing, I don't think I'll be struck by lightning just for complaining a little, do you? He breathed for a while and asked, how much further? Cronus looked around and replied, just a little bit more. We'll arrive if we climb another distance equal to the one we've already covered. Hearing this, Ryoga walked and lamented. Does that mean we've only gone halfway? Cronus agreed. You could say that. Ryoga walked and gasped for breath. If I have to go through all this trouble and get nothing in return, there will definitely be big trouble. Before long, the sun was high in the sky. Ryoga continued to walk on the never-ending staircase. After a long journey, Ryoga finally stepped into a special room. He looked up at the ceiling, thinking something to himself. The system gradually displayed a notification. Cronus saw this and laughed out loud. This is ridiculous. Ryoga frowned and reminded, can you be quiet for a sec? Cronus suddenly frowned, his expression becoming serious. Then I guess it's my turn. Immediately after, he seemed to be summoning power. His finger pointed to a spot in the air and pressed it. The system displayed a notification. Registration successful. Then the system displayed the holy magic he received. First is impure blessing, next is penalty wed. After everything appeared, Cronus looked at him and laughed. How about it? I've bestowed this upon you. Ryoga nodded, seemingly satisfied. Pretty good. As soon as he received his nod, Cronus laughed out loud. This is my greatness. Just then, another system notification appeared. To continue shining in the temple, achieve more accomplishments, and receive praise, the current starlight is too weak to attract followers. Please enhance the star's divinity. After reading, Ryoga looked at him and smirked. It says that. Cronus angrily cursed silently. What kind of garbage system is this? Yet Ryoga twitched his lips and smiled cryptically. Even so, it doesn't change the fact that I've become stronger. Time passed. The pitch-black sky suddenly shone with a strange light. Ryoga was walking alone on the road, his expression gloomy, without any emotion. Suddenly, someone came from behind and asked, Hey, why did you walk out of the temple? The man in front, named Sadek Shidru, looked at him and smiled ominously. It's been a while, hasn't it? Ryoga frowned with irritation. Who are you? Sadek sneered, raising his voice. I took care of you at the orphanage, right? It's me, Sadek, remember now. Ryoga turned his eyes elsewhere and replied, Ah, that piece of trash who specializes in blackmailing others. Don't talk to me like we're friends. Rewinding a long time ago, Sadek had bullied a friend who lived in the same dormitory. He attacked while hurling insults. Just then, Ryoga appeared and gave him a punch to remember. Now thinking back to that punch, he suddenly laughed. Has your nose healed since I smashed it? Hearing the insult, Sadek angrily gritted his teeth. You little brat. Afterward, he tried to keep his cool, lifting his hand to stroke his hair arrogantly. I almost lost my cool. Sadek intentionally showed off the badge on his chest. The badge emitted a dazzling light. He boasted, I've joined the Arajiri Guild. He laughed sarcastically and warned, if you're planning to come to the temple, that means you're also just a small-time scavenger hunter, right? Don't think things will be the same as before. Standing before the stern warning, Ryoga remained very calm. To me, it seems like nothing has changed. Seeing him unafraid, Sadek gritted his teeth in annoyance. How dare you? He clenched his fists and lunged forward, shouting, Don't you dare act all high and mighty with me. But someone quickly lunged and grabbed his arm. It was the captain of the 7th Strike Team of the Arajiri Guild, Reigo Ramen. He squeezed Sadek's hand and warned, Stop it, we're in the middle of the city. Seeing himself being stopped, Sadek was furious. Ramen. But before he could finish his sentence, Ramen turned to look at Ryoga and suggested, Then why don't we change locations and have a formal match? As soon as he finished speaking, thoughts rose in his mind. He dares to declare war even knowing we're from Arajiri. What an insolent brat. Sadek was stunned with surprise. With this guy. Ramen nodded affirmatively. That's right, you two know each other, don't you? So why not let your fists do the talk? Hearing this, Sadek laughed delightedly. No, you must be joking, right? This guy only just became a hunter recently. As soon as he finished speaking, Ryoga didn't hesitate to agree. Fine by me. Seeing him agree without hesitation, Sadek was extremely startled. Hearing that seemingly fearful tone, Ryoga mocked. What's wrong? Are you scared? Just that single sentence made Sadek furious. You can't take back what you just said, you bastard. Soon enough, they arrived at a place called the training room, connected to the Arajiri Guild. Ryoga and Sadek stood facing each other on the training floor. Ryoga suddenly stepped back and spoke. I am a priest, so you will be fighting my representative. After hearing that, Sadek took out a mana necklace and jeered. Hey, looks like you've managed to get your hands on a pretty decent tool. Is that a summoned spirit beast? Then he paused, gritting his teeth. But having some extra trinkets won't do you any good. Immediately after, the system displayed a notification. The match has been activated. Sadek flashed a toothy grin as the system measured the relevant stat. Ryoga frowned with anticipation, knowing the protective system would activate itself if anything went wrong. the match begins. As soon as the fight started, Sadek laughed mockingly. What's wrong? Are you scared already? Ryoga reached up to clean his ear, thinking to himself, what is he saying? The Dragonian stepped forward slowly and spoke. I didn't expect to clash with Aragiri in a situation like this. It let out a small sigh and spoke decisively. I'll try to see how this body feels. If it's Aragiri, there's no need to hold back. Ryoga stood by watching, whispering instructions. Don't end it with just one blow. There are a few things I want to test. A flash of bewilderment lit up the Dragonian's eyes, but holding back proved even harder. Sadek decisively lunged to attack. I'll show you where you belong. Without hesitation, he thrust his spear straight toward the Dragonian. It gracefully jumped up to dodge the strike. Sadek didn't stop there, immediately retaliating with a technique. Kyreg Spear Art Third Form, Flash Reflex Footwork. No matter what move the Dragonian made, Sadek decisively dodged and retaliated perfectly. Next was another technique, Kyreg Spear Art Second Form. Back when I broke your nose, you were crying like a baby, remember? Seeing the situation, Ramen smiled and pondered. That reaction is better than during practice. It's ending faster than I thought. The Dragonian saw that and retorted loudly. Do you think a slow attack like that could actually hit the target? Seeing that it hadn't even been scratched, Sadek was momentarily taken aback. What? He gripped his weapon tightly, his mind trembling. I can't move. The Dragonian glared, gritting its teeth as it insulted. How pathetic. Attacking without even calculating your next move. Pausing for a moment, it mocked. If this were a real battlefield, you'd be finished. At that, the Dragonian suddenly remembered to hold back. It decisively swung its hand, striking Sadek's body. A single blow was enough to make him collapse right before its eyes. Sadek screamed in pain. Sadek screamed in pain. Seeing that, Ryoga walked over and whispered, the last time I broke your nose, didn't you cry quite pity? Then he turned to mock Sadek a bit more. Now you're only screaming for a second. Quite an improvement in your maturity. Sadek roared angrily, you bastard. Seeing him about to charge again, the Dragonian stepped up to protect Ryoga. Sadek continued to charge with his weapon in hand. The Dragonian heroically stomped its foot. A collision caused the ground to crack and shatter into pieces. That scene left Sadek even more astonished. The Dragonian narrowed its eyes and mocked. If you use the same move twice, your opponent will catch on immediately. As soon as it finished speaking, it kicked straight into the opponent's leg. A single kick was enough to snap Sadek's leg bone in two. The pain that followed made his eyes roll back as he screamed loudly. The Dragonian wore a demonic smile. It's over. As soon as it finished, it threw in an extra palm strike for good measure. Seeing that scene, Sadek froze, his face turning pale. It's over. In the nick of time, someone shouted, stop. Ramen gritted his teeth in anger and marched forward. Seeing Ramen so angry, Ryoga smiled smugly. They stopped earlier than I thought. Sadek sat painfully on the ground as the system reviewed the situation and announced, the match is over. Ramen walked over anxiously to examine Sadek's wounds and instructed, I'll go call a priest immediately. Wait here. Ryoga walked over calmly and pointed directly at his own face. There's already a priest right here. He flatly retorted, don't you know rank 1 recovery magic can't heal broken bones? Ryoga walked over and nodded casually. I know. Seeing Ryoga still hesitating, Ramen turned around with an irritated expression. Then what are you going to do to heal him? Ryoga immediately took out a vial. I'll use an intermediate potion. Sadek was displeased and rebuked him. An intermediate potion costs millions of yen each, doesn't it? But didn't your spirit beast break my leg? Ryoga replied nonchalantly. Don't you know the news about the mass production of intermediate potions? Just as he started, Sadek screamed in pain. Never heard of it. I don't want charity from the winner. Get lost now. Seeing him complaining constantly, Ryoga shouted loudly, hey, I'm trying to help you, just accept it. As soon as he finished, he calculated inwardly, I'm still thinking of a way to market it. Ryoga poured the potion directly onto the wound and smiled sinisterly. Who would have thought I'd have a test subject ready here? How lucky. A glowing liquid poured straight into the wound on Sadek's knee. After witnessing this miracle, Ramen was momentarily stunned. No way, it actually works. The bone was completely reconnected. At that moment, a thought crossed his mind. I want that potion. After fixing Sadek's injury, Ryoga stood up with a satisfied expression. Ramen walked over and bit his lip, trying to ask, intermediate potion, where did you buy it? Hearing this question, Ryoga couldn't help but smirk. He's taken the bait. Ryoga pondered for a moment and spoke. If you are a team leader at Aragiri, you must be around rank 3, right? Ramen nodded frankly. Yeah, so what? Ryoga glanced at him and smiled. Then fight me, and I'll tell you the details about that potion. Receiving this offer, Ramen was also a bit surprised. So it's not enough yet. Ryoga sighed and reasoned. The last match was too short. This time I want to fight seriously. And just like that, Ryoga's spirit beast and Ramen entered the ring, ready for action, and the system began to display. The match begins. From the very first blow, Ramen immediately charged with a swordsmanship technique. Piercing sword art 5th form, cold strike. At the moment of the first impact, he thought inwardly, it's impressive that you could react to Sadake, thrust. But Ramen observed the Dragonian closely and concluded, with that massive body, everything has its limits. Just then, the system flashed a damage warning. Ramen seized the opportunity and lunged to attack the Dragonian. Ryoga watched intently from the outside. Just as I thought. Kashiwaga's fast attacking style doesn't fit a melee-focused Dragonian at all. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but grin triumphantly. That's why I used the potion bottle as bait to provoke Ramen. Watching the Dragonian looking disheveled and tired, Ryoga hesitated, knowing that if he encountered an opponent he couldn't fight well, Fafnir would definitely feel it too. The Dragonian spoke wearily. In this match, I will get used to this heavy body. Ryoga frowned, his eyes full of pride. Good attitude, truly worthy of being my right-hand man. Then he reached out his hand, and a source of dark power called Unclean Blessing appeared. Ryoga smiled demonically. Then I can't just stand by and watch, can I? The system table displayed information. Unclean Blessing, type, Holy Art, boosts stats for selected undead, weakens non-undead targets. All Nia's stats increased by 20%. Seeing this, Ramen couldn't help but be surprised. A holy-type buff spell can make it this strong. That's crazy. Ryoga launched those dark tendrils toward the opponent. Immediately, Ramen's body was entangled and his strength drained rapidly. Unclean Blessing. Why does my body feel heavier? The system displayed a notification. Due to Unclean Blessing, all stats are reduced by 10%. Ramen's face turned darker and darker, buffing allies, weakening enemies. Is this guy really just rank 1? Cronus saw that and couldn't help but be smug. How about that? A new spell I granted you. Ryoga smiled. Not bad for a low-level constellation. Cronus opened his mouth to retort, daring to call me low-level, you. But Ryoga reached out to cover Cronus's mouth, reminding him, we're in the middle of a match, stay quiet. Ryoga's expression became more focused. The system continued to update. Penalty wedge has been activated. Target gains penalty points each time they take damage. Releasing vengeance will cause damage based on accumulated points. Ryoga entrusted Kashiwagi. Do whatever you want. Hearing that, Kashiwaga's aura radiated powerful oppression. That is a perfect command. Ramen's figure split into 3, continuously and flexibly trading blows with Kashiwagi. The system sound blared repeatedly. Punishment activated. Punishment activated. In a minute of thinking, Ramen was a bit distressed. He couldn't imagine a rank 2 Erigiri could adapt so easily to having their stats reduced. But seeing his opponent continue to firmly block all the attacks, Ramen couldn't help but be stunned. A rank 1 summon that can move forward while enduring the attacks of a rank 3, punishment activated. Warning, defense is decreasing due to continuous damage. Kashiwaga's eyes gleamed as he told himself, forget the speed-based combat style of your human days. This body is undead, and even if it's damaged, it doesn't affect movement. Blood splattered onto his abdomen and clothes. Don't dodge the attacks, endure them and enter melee range. Immediately after, he lunged into a defensive stance. Within range, Kashiwagi tilted his body and threw a punch. Ramen couldn't react and couldn't avoid the attack. Kennic Martial Arts Chapter 7, 10-Punch Combo. Kashiwagi unleashed a barrage of heavy punches straight at his opponent. Ramen was pushed back, crying out in pain. He struggled as he sat on the ground. Damn it, my health is dropping instantly. That definitely isn't a rank 1 summon. System displayed, HP minus 25%. Ramen's face twisted in terror. If I take that hit one more time, will I lose? Thinking of this, Ramen's killing intent rose again, his dangerous eyes glaring. Don't mess with me. A rank 3 Erigiri cannot lose to a rank 1. Then he regained his momentum and sprang forward. I'm faster. Summoners should be very weak. Just as Kashiwagi couldn't react, Ramen flashed past him. This time, his target was Ryoga. Excitement surged within Ramen as he thought victory was guaranteed. Piercing Sword Art 12th Form, Penetration. The sharp sword tip lunged toward Ryoga. However, Ryoga remained extremely nonchalant. I knew you'd do that. He reached out and flicked his finger, releasing the penalty wedge. Immediately, an invisible force appeared and sent Ramen flying. Fafnir released. Accumulated punishment created a shockwave. Finally, he lay motionless on the ground. Reigo Ramen's HP has reached 0. The match is over. Scene cuts to the luxurious, magnificent high-rise of the Erigiri Guild. In the empty room, a nameplate sat on the desk. Vice Guild Master, Naruhito Bakugo. Bakugo sat in the chair, asking the person in front of him, Can you mass-produce these commercial intermediate potions? Erigiri number 2, rank 7 hunter Hakuho Naruhido. Ramen, wearing his injured face, carefully replied, "Yes, that's correct." He leaned on his hand, not quite believing it yet. "Have you checked its effectiveness carefully?" Ramen affirmed again. "It healed the bone fracture instantly. It has effectiveness equivalent to the intermediate potions that drop in gates." Suddenly remembering something, Ramen cautiously glanced at his superior, then spoke up, "Vice Guild Master, I apologize. I have tarnished the reputation of Erigiri, so I will take responsibility." But Bakugo crossed his arms and asked back, why would Erigiri's reputation collapse just because team leader Ramen failed? He instinctively tried to explain, losing to an unknown rank 1 hunter, but he suddenly cut him off. Erigiri's reputation. Now, the expression on Bakugo's face was terrifying. Do you think it would collapse just because one rank 3 veteran failed? Ramen was immediately overwhelmed by that presence, his voice trembling involuntarily. "I'm sorry." Having settled the matter, Bakugo spoke to end the meeting. "That's enough. You may leave." But the moment Ramen left, Bakugo ordered the female employee, "Demote Captain Ramen to a regular member. Also, find out the source of those intermediate potions." She replied, "Yes." He looked at the computer screen, displaying the battle footage from earlier. Bakugo couldn't help but ponder as he thought of Ryoga. For a 1-star hunter's summoned spirit to defeat a 3-star is impossible. His fingertips tapped continuously on the armrest, signaling his calculations. He claims to be a priest. Does he possess a god-tier summon? Bakugo then decided, "Investigate him as well." She replied, "Yes." Meanwhile, Ryoga was also talking about him. "By now, Erigiri's superiors must know about the potions. I'm quite looking forward to their reaction." Kashiwagi crossed his arms and looked at him. "Hey," Ryoga replied, "what is it?" He held up a book. "Why am I reading a skill book on spear mastery?" Ryoga explained, "You're a magic warrior, so you're good at melee combat and using weapons, right? I think learning from you would be better." Kashiwagi flipped through a few pages, pondering, "You're forcing me to do something troublesome. But why suddenly spear skill?" Ryoga suddenly remembered the moment Sadek lunged to attack. He exclaimed with annoyance, "Whenever things get dangerous, everyone targets me. That pisses me off." Hearing this, Kashiwagi laughed with tears of amusement. Targeting the weaker one is only natural, after all. The more he spoke, the harder he laughed and teased him. "A master who looks even weaker than his right-hand man. Drink more protein and train harder." Ryoga frowned in dissatisfaction. Suddenly, he looked at his own raised arm. "My left hand is moving on its own. Wait." Right after that, a loud noise rang out. Kashiwagi immediately changed his attitude, a bump forming on his head, and obediently complied with his request. "All right, I understand this skill book. Now I will teach you spear techniques." Ryoga praised him. "As expected of a magic warrior, you learn fast." Having said that, he threw the book toward him. The master should memorize it too. Ryoga caught it easily. Venian Family Basic Spear Technique, Type, Skill Book. A book recording the basic spear techniques passed down within the Venian family. Even a child could learn them if they understood the content. Thinking of this, Ryoga told himself, "If I learn this, I'll be able to learn the Death Spiral later." The Death Spiral is a skill developed by a British spear-wielding star based on Verdian House spear techniques. It would normally take years to complete, but in this life, I will finish it myself. His expression became sinister with a smirk. "This is the privilege of a reincarnator. I'll gladly accept it." Next, the book vanished, turning into a golden stream floating in the air. Ryoga is using Venian Family Basic Spear Skill Book. System reports, skill data has been installed. He felt its power very quickly. As expected, skill books are wonderful. I've learned the spear techniques immediately. First form, stab. Second form, instant stab. Third form, wind spin. Fourth form, shaft strike. Fifth form, fierce sweep. Sixth form, full power stab. There are 6 forms in total, quite simple. Suddenly, Kashiwagi jumped up unexpectedly. "Like I said, I'm great at teaching." Ryoga was bewildered, not understanding what was happening, and looked up at Kashiwagi. Grabbed his staff and gained momentum, preparing to aim at where he was standing. Physical techniques are learned through experiencing them. Immediately after, a loud explosion erupted, with dust and debris flying high into the air. When the space became clearer, Kashiwagi was ready for the training session. "Now, master, let's begin the practical training." The summoner's protector adjusted his posture, the spear in his hand, like a natural extension of his giant blue body. The spearhead slammed onto the floor, just inches from Ryoga's feet. Fafnir scolded him mid-action, pointing out that constantly dodging wouldn't help him master the weapon. He needed to learn how to stand firm and confront. Ryoga kept his body light, his eyes locked onto the moving weapon, barely dodging a series of lethal attacks. In a rare moment of amusement, Ryoga wondered if Fafnir was holding a grudge. but the Dragonoid affirmed that this battle was purely for educational purposes. The Dragonoid lunged again, reminding his master that in a real battle, the enemy wouldn't care how long he had been learning this skill. They would only kill him. Ryoga tightened his grip on the training staff, his expression hardening as he prepared to transition from pure dodging to active parry. Fafnir's weapon became a silvery blue blur as he tested Ryoga's reflexes, with high-speed thrusting attacks throughout the arena. "Bring it on," Ryoga yelled, finally finding his rhythm and swinging his staff to parry the next attack. He activated the third form, defensive rotation, causing the weapon to spin and create an energy-vibrating defensive shield. The two weapons collided, creating a shower of sparks, and for the first time, Ryoga successfully halted Dragonoid's momentum. He finally got the timing right. He held the block firm, muscles tensed against Fafnir's overwhelming power while searching for an opening to counterattack. But Fafnir was faster than he looked, shifting his center of gravity and delivering a brutal follow-up strike straight into Ryoga's chest. The blow was so powerful it cracked the floor beneath. The strike knocked all the air out of Ryoga's lungs, leaving him gasping while trying to maintain his balance. He didn't even see the second hit. He dropped to his knees, clutching his chest while his vision blurred from the force of the strike. Fafnir stood over him with a stern expression, reminding him that just one successful block didn't mean the fight was over. A true warrior never lets their guard down. Ryoga coughed, frustrated that his perfect defense had been shattered so easily. He thought he had the rhythm down, but he had only focused on the first strike. The dragon mentor explained that even though he blocked the first, he left himself completely exposed for the second. Combat is a continuous flow, not a series of individual strikes. Ryoga yelled that the power gap was too large, but Fafnir revealed he had suppressed his power to be equal to his master's level. This was entirely a skill issue. Pushed to his limit, Ryoga's competitive fire ignited. He told the Dragonoid that from now on, he would go all out, no matter how much it hurt. He activated the life absorption skill, not to heal, but to pump the absorbed energy into his muscles and temporarily boost his physical stats. His body began to emit a terrifying blue aura. Thanks to the absorbed mana, he lunged and deployed the fourth form, a devastating shaft strike aimed straight at Fafnir's guard. The impact made the surrounding air shatter. Ryoga's enhanced power finally allowed him to challenge the brute strength of the summoned creature. He tried to capitalize on the advantage to counterattack, but Fafnir's gaze remained focused, noticing another flaw in his master's technique. Ryoga was still thinking too far ahead. A moment later, Ryoga was lying on his back on the floor again, staring blankly at the ceiling and wondering where his defense had failed this time. The gap remained. Fafnir stood over him again, criticizing the failed defense and pointing out that he had focused too much on the counterattack without paying enough attention to the initial block. Despite the pain, Ryoga struggled to stand, his life absorption aura still flickering as he prepared for the next round. He wouldn't give up until he got it right. Fafnir lunged with an extremely fast series of attacks, demanding his master get the timing right this time. Ryoga's eyes widened as the spearhead flew toward him, forcing his body to react faster than ever before. He had to trust his new instincts. The brutal training session ended with one final, extremely powerful collision between the two spears. Night fell over the city, with neon light from street signs illuminating the crowded streets outside local eateries. Slabs of thick pork belly sizzled on a round charcoal grill, with fat dripping onto the coals and sending up delicious steam. Rookie Tank leaned forward over the table, his eyes nearly popping out of his sockets as he looked at his friend's face. Ryoga sat with a perfectly calm expression, despite having a bruised, purple eye and a swollen cheek. His messy black hair couldn't hide the wounds inflicted by Fafnir during the educational session. "A lot happened," Ryoga said casually, picking up his chopsticks as if his face wasn't a map of injuries. Rookie Tank could only respond with a face trying to hold back laughter. While Ryoga ate, his summoning ring flickered with a mocking pale blue light. Fafnir's voice echoed in his head, praising his master for surviving the training without passing out. Ryoga tightened his grip on his chopsticks with a cold, determined smile that didn't fit the relaxing atmosphere around them. He suspected Fafnir might have truly enjoyed the legitimate opportunity to beat him black and blue. Inside the ring's pocket dimension, a chibi version of Fafnir was lounging on a beach chair under a tropical umbrella. The Dragonoid was clearly enjoying his time off, while his master bore the physical consequences of the lesson. Ryoga kept his focus on his food. His mind had already raced to his next goal. He knew the path to power required more than just enduring a few bruises. He realized his life absorption skill was far more versatile than he had initially thought. Relying on simple buffs wouldn't be enough if he wanted to lead the big guilds. He was confident that with his knowledge from his past life and his new skills, he would surpass the strength he once had in his past life. Rookie Tank was clearly unsettled by Ryoga's terrifying expression, sweating while trying to keep the mood cheerful. The mood changed as he remembered the bank savings account, smiling happily at the 15 million deposited. It was a huge sum for just 3 days of work, and he was eager to earn more. Ryoga leaned back, asking if there was any important news in the Hunter world. Rookie Tank mentioned that Heibara was monitoring Hunterit, an exclusive site for professional hunters. They had heard rumors of mysterious deaths in Kamakura and strange events elsewhere. They looked through the list of active gates, including the Kagoshima Gate, and a series of murders targeting hunters. None of them looked like the quick path to power-up that Ryoga was looking for. Ryoga ate slowly, cross-referencing every name and location with his future memories. He hoped to find something small to exploit before the big guilds took notice. Rookie Tank mentioned one more location, the forgotten ancient temple gate in Wakayama. This name immediately captured Ryoga's full attention. He paused, his eyes widening slightly as he realized the timelines were coinciding. He was astonished that a place with such high potential value had still not been cleared at this late stage. Rookie Tank explained that Guild Horizon had been struggling with it for a year and was now in a critical state. He was rarely this serious when warning that a mana break was about to occur. Static Gate, a stable gate where hunters could easily destroy monsters that spawned periodically. These gates were predictable and profitable for the managing guild. Conversely, a mobile gate like the Ancient Temple was a nightmare when mana density reached 100%. When full, monsters would spill into the real world in a catastrophic mana break. Ryoga looked at his nearly empty plate, his mind already calculating the risks of entering a gate about to break. Rookie Tank added that Guild Horizon had officially lifted all entry restrictions due to the emergency. This meant that independent hunters like Ryoga could now enter without a license from the ruling guild. They discussed the powerful forces that were descending, specifically the second-ranked Phoenix Guild and the third-ranked Daybreak Guild. These powers were also sensing the same opportunity as Ryoga. Ryoga remembered that in the original timeline, Guild Phoenix had obtained the legendary dragon-scale armor from this temple. It was an epic-grade artifact that made them nearly invincible for years. A dangerous, satisfied smile spread across Ryoga's face as the pieces of his plan finally fell into place. This time, he wouldn't let the big guilds steal the reward. Ryoga realized that possessing the dragon-scale armor, along with his new spear skills, would be the perfect foundation for his revenge. He looked like a villain planning his next heist. Ryoga stood up abruptly, slammed his hand on the table, and issued a series of rapid orders. He told Yuma to contact the rest of the team and prepare to camp overnight outside the gate. They would depart tomorrow. The next day, at the entrance to the dungeon, a pair of giant dragon statues framed the blue vortex gate, the entrance to the forgotten ancient temple. This mobile gate was a large dungeon with an incredible mana density of up to 93%. Outside, a campground had sprung up as hunters from all over gathered to raid the dungeon. Heibara was impressed by the crowd, nodding and saying how many people had shown up since the restrictions were lifted. Yuma asked Ryoga if they should set up their own tent while waiting. Ryoga said they would spend their time inside the gate. But Yuka was worried that 5 days' worth of dry rations wouldn't be enough. Ryoga didn't care. He was confident he could clear this entire place within 5 days. Suddenly, Heibara pointed at the crowd, telling everyone to look at a certain hunter. That was Asaka Mayuri, the woman who would become Phoenix's next holy sword. Ryoga recognized her immediately, knowing she was the one who had obtained the dragon-scale armor here in the original story. In his past life, she was a legendary genius, but her career ended tragically in a gate raid. Yuma nudged him again, pointing out another master in the group. Over there was Gouda, a fighter from the Daybreak Guild. In the future, he would be known by the nickname Iron Fist, and be one of Japan's powerful representatives. Ryoga realized that all the famous future figures were gathered here for this raid. Yuma started sweating, wondering if their team could really clear the gate before all these legends did. Ryoga just turned away, telling him not to worry about them, but to do it their own way. He had made his decision. He would be the one to clear the temple and win that armor. The team rushed toward the gate, ignoring the stares from the other hunters. As they stepped through the threshold, a system notification confirmed they had entered the forgotten ancient temple. As soon as he was inside, Ryoga activated the ring on his hand, summoning his creature. The challenge Guardian Dragonian appeared in a massive surge of dark energy, taller than everyone else. The giant creature stood towering in the darkness of the ruins, its blue scales emitting a faint glow. His teammates were clearly shaken, asking if Ryoga intended to turn them into undead. He gave them a cold look, saying he wasn't just randomly turning anyone into a puppet. The challenge Guardian Fafnir laughed loudly, mocking them by saying they were so weak that zombies were the best hope they could expect. Ryoga told them not to worry about useless matters and to keep moving forward. Suddenly, the stone pillars and the floor of the temple began to move and grind against each other. The Dragon Challenge Guardian realized the terrain was changing and checked with his master to see if they were okay. Yuka panicked, realizing that this terrain change meant the actual difficulty was 3 stars. The entire interior structure changed once a day, along with all the monsters inside. Ryoga kept a cold expression, remembering that these features were exactly the same as before he regressed. He ordered the challenge Guardian Fafnir to lead the way as they pushed forward. The summoned creature happily complied, ready to protect its fragile master while being buffed by dark thorns. Sunlight shone through the cracked ceiling of the ancient temple, illuminating the dust floating in the air. The group stopped as the dragon and the challenge guardian sensed something waiting for them ahead. A pair of gray, clawed feet stepped out on the stone floor, kicking up a small cloud of dust. A fallen priest appeared from the shadows, wearing a skull mask with glowing red eyes full of malice. Ryoga kept his calm, identifying the enemy for his panicked team. The priest laughed savagely and lunged toward them at terrifying speed. But the challenge Guardian Fafnir was on it instantly, catching the monster mid-lunge. Yuma finally offered to provide support, but the battle was already resolved. Fafnir grabbed the monster's hand, then slammed it into the ground. A powerful punch exploded with a terrifying force of impact, sending debris and shockwaves throughout the room. Yuma looked at the sight of raw power with wide eyes, completely overwhelmed by what he was witnessing. Steam rose from Fafnir's body as he stood over the wreckage, mocking his weak enemies. Ryoga stepped forward and scolded his summon. If he smashed their heads in, he couldn't raise them as useful undead. The brief moment of pause was interrupted as the second massive wave of priests began to flood into the room. The dragon warrior prepared for the next round, nodding and saying that the enemy truly didn't know when to give up. Ryoga decided he had seen enough from the sidelines and prepared to participate actively in the battle. He raised his staff of resentment high, and a system notification confirmed that mana consumption had decreased significantly. Ryoga activated bone control to capture the enemies rushing in. Sharp bone spikes suddenly shot out, piercing through the chests of several priests. Dark energy and holy magic blended to erode the remaining life force of the enemy at a terrifying speed. Ryoga knew that due to their low attribute resistance, this specific magic combination was lethal. A wave of debuffs swept through the remaining priests, clearly slowing their speed and making them sluggish. Fafnir noticed the change immediately, as his own stats were doubled by the powerful buff, and he charged headlong into the enemy ranks. His movements were fluid and practiced, thanks to their recent training session. He slammed into the center of the monster horde like a meteor, shattering their formation with a single blow. The summoned creature stood atop the pile of corpses as the last of the cultists were finally eliminated. Ryoga lowered his staff with a sigh, realizing he had almost forgotten to activate the life absorption effect to heal everyone. Fafnir reminded Ryoga that without him there, the kid wouldn't even be able to use skills like life absorption. The Dragonian snorted, waiting for at least a simple word of thanks or a hint of gratitude. Ryoga looked at him with pure annoyance, remembering the days before the regression when Fafnir was the silent, brooding type. The level up notification appeared as Ryoga hit level 20, and feeling the new knowledge etched directly into his soul. He unlocked 2 new skills, Dark Wise and Dark Rain, both of which helped reduce spiritual power consumption by 10% and 20% respectively. Ryoga realized these were the perfect tools for a marathon battle in a place like the ancient temple. He ordered the fallen enemies to rise and answer his summoning call. The armored zombies that appeared were of high quality, boasting a 100% buff to all stats. Yuma was impressed, wondering if the cultists made for stronger undead since their base stats were higher than the orcs, but Ryoga corrected him, explaining that while the physical body is a factor, the magical spells carved into them are far more important. The guy looked back at him with a completely dazed and confused expression, bewildered by the technical terminology. Ryoga clarified that it meant the stat difference wasn't actually that significant. He then turned his attention to the path ahead, telling the group to pick up the pace because the temple was much deeper than it looked. They advanced into the temple's colossal Gothic-style pillar hall. Fafnir took the lead, tearing through the cultists with brutal efficiency, while Yuma shielded against the enemies holding the front line. A bright yellow arrow of light cut across the room as Yuka cleared the path. The armored zombies rushed forward in a glowing teal swarm, pursuing relentlessly. Despite their progress, Ryoga gritted his teeth, annoyed by the seemingly endless wave of monsters. Suddenly, a violent tremor shook the entire area. Yuma shouted that the structure was changing, and they needed to get out quickly. Ryoga told him to wait, sifting through his memories of the future to find the right move. He recalled an old television interview with Hunter Asaka, the first person to ever clear the ancient temple. The host started by asking her to explain the strategy for clearing the gate. Asaka explained that while most gates were simple, the ancient temple required a specific method just to even approach the boss. She detailed that the 3 types of monsters in the temple each dropped a different type of proof. To advance deeper, one had to collect 49 of those proofs and place them on special pillars throughout the dungeon. Back in the present, Ryoga spotted a pillar with an eye pattern carved into it and realized the next monster was about to appear. A red vortex swirled open in the middle of the hall. Something massive and dark began to crawl through the portal. A giant demonic eyeball appeared, surrounded by a writhing mass of black tentacles. The group looked up at the creature, floating above their heads. The central eye flashed with a ferocious red light, gathering its attack. A massive beam of energy exploded from the eye, tearing through the air toward the group. Ryoga remained completely calm, his eyes glowing turquoise as he tracked the energy signature. He raised his hand, summoning a flurry of sharp bone shards from the air. The shards fused together, creating a jagged bone wall that blocked the beam head-on. The laser struck the barrier, exploding in a fierce clash of red and blue energy. Despite the immense power of the attack, the bone shield stood firm, nearly unscathed. Ryoga maintained the defense effortlessly, his power completely neutralizing the threat. He told his team that a bone shield reinforced by Shintani's formula wouldn't be broken so easily. The demonic eye focused its gaze, preparing to fire another concentrated beam. A high-output red energy beam shot out, aimed directly at Ryoga. Ryoga maintained absolute composure, not even blinking as the lethal ray rushed toward him. He watched the energy tear through the air, confident in his defense. Fafnir suddenly jumped in front, taking the full force of the beam on his massive armored chest. The Dragonian stood firm, telling his master to fall back so he could handle the heavy lift. The eye fired its attack once again, and the terrifying heat from the ray pressed against Fafnir, but his scales held fast under the pressure. Ryoga observed from behind, evaluating his summon's incredible durability, explaining that he had put a lot of work into creating this body, so a simple 2-star attack wouldn't melt the scale. Fafnir agreed, realizing he truly had nothing to fear in this battle. He lunged at the demonic eye, ready to end the encounter. With a terrifying downward slash, he smashed the monster straight into the floor. The creature was defeated instantly under Fafnir's overwhelming power. The Dragonian asked if he should turn it into an undead, but Ryoga refused, saying it would ruin the drop they needed. Ryoga explained that the eye was the proof needed to clear the gate, and it would be useless if it became part of an undead. The group continued deeper, the air growing heavier with dark energy. A strange figure in a white mask watched them laughingly from the shadows of the high arches. They passed a stone pillar, carved with a ghostly, smiling face. A mask mimic suddenly dropped down, its thin, black body twitching as it approached. Yuko was clearly unsettled by the creature's creepy appearance. The mask mimic cast a curse of decay, and a deep purple mist swirled around the area. Fafnir was caught in the curse, his body beginning to emit a terrifying purple glow. The system window confirmed Fafnir's stats were dropping due to the mimic's ability. The mask mimic let out a low, predatory growl as it prepared to strike. Ryoga considered using Impure Blessing to deal with. Realizing the curse shared the same dark attribute as his spiritual power, a small turquoise flame flickered on Fafnir's finger as he began to resist the effect. The Dragonian explained his plan. If the curse was a dark attribute attack, he just needed to suppress it with a stronger form of dark energy. Ryoga was surprised to see Fafnir removing the curse on his own. He looked at his summon, impressed by the astounding talent of being able to figure that out instinctively. The mask mimic lunged, spewing a stream of purple energy called the Curse of Decay. Ryoga Chinen stepped forward, placing a hand on Fafnir's back, deciding it was time to try a new trick. He activated Impure Blessing, using the Dragonian as a bridge between his own power and the incoming attack. The mimic froze midair, its empty eyes widening as the curse began to backfire on. Fafnir realized immediately that his master was pumping holy energy directly back through the curse's connection. Trapped in a loop of its own making, the creature began to freeze up, and Ryoga shrugged, nodding that being a saint made his holy attacks a cheat code against dark type. Massive turquoise energy spikes erupted from the ground, tearing the remnants of the mimic apart. The battle ended in seconds, leaving Ryoga to casually kick the drop out of the pile of corpses. He bent down to pick up the mask, the third piece he needed. Cronus mocked his choice of souvenir, but Ryoga knew this ugly thing was the key to the entire temple. To approach the boss, one had to collect 49 proofs of each type: horns, eyes, and a mask mimic like this. He recalled the future interview, where Asaka explained exactly how to open the hidden room. The trick was to kill the monsters without damaging the quest items they carried. Ryoga found this requirement quite annoying, which explained why no one had cleared this place in a year. He kept a poker face, wondering how Asaka had figured all of this out in his original timeline. At the same time, Yuma pointed out that the Phoenix Guild was causing chaos nearby. Ryoga just smiled. It was the perfect timing. Deeper in the shadows, Asaka's team was being swarmed by glowing red-eyed monsters. Asaka maintained her focus, drawing her sword with absolute precision. She engaged a monster's jump head-on, her movements sharp and practiced. Her sword erupted in a red aura as she slashed through the enemy's dark curve. Cronus was impressed, realizing she had used pure aura to bypass the dark magic. Ryoga realized this was an option for Gale's sword, a skill that required extremely precise timing. He didn't intend to stop and watch, ordering his team to pick up the pace. As they passed, Asaka paused, watching the strange group move without a shred of hesitation. Her teammate asked if she was curious about them, but she was only more puzzled by their lack of fear. The man assumed they were just reckless amateurs, but Asaka wasn't so sure. Ryoga kept his eyes forward, stepping deeper into the temple's Gothic architecture. Asaka watched him, certain that no one could move with such confidence unless they knew the layout by heart. Ryoga remained silent, his mind already 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He threw a quick glance over his shoulder, realizing he was being followed. Asaka watched his retreating figure, having a clear feeling that their paths would cross again. 5 days later, the fatigue of the grind began to show, as the ruins filled with the corpses of fallen cultists. Ryoga sighed, admitting that despite his knowledge from the previous life, the endless spawning of monsters was becoming irritating. The team members were clearly under pressure, wondering if the monsters would ever stop appearing. A stray cultist tried to sneak up while they were distracted. Fafnir didn't allow it, swinging a massive, scaled fist and smashing the monster straight into the ground with such force that it cracked the stone floor. The collision sent a shockwave through the area, and Cronus laughed loudly, calling Ryoga a hero for his bravery, though in reality, Ryoga was just trying to survive. Ryoga cleaned up the remaining monsters, ordering the zombies behind him to provide support. When the floor was clear of cultists, the area finally fell into a short, eerie silence. He activated life absorption, pulling the remaining mana energy from the fallen enemies to maintain the marathon grind. The system pinged with a success notification. He officially leveled up to level 27. Cronus drifted by, telling him he should show more charisma with a victorious smile. Ryoga just told the spirit to mind his own business and stop criticizing his smile. He apologized for his lack of elegance while sheathing his sword, ready to move to the next stage. Nearby, a small pile of quest items, eyes and masks, lay at the base of a cracked stone pillar. The 48th token was placed, completing the collection needed to trigger the temple's hidden mechanism. Ryoga noticed other large guilds had retreated, leaving the gate clear for his final move. He told his teammates to take the bag of magic stones to sell while he stayed behind. Yuma was surprised but agreed to return, while Ryoga continued to grind a few more levels. When the team had left, Ryoga and Fafnir stood before a massive, ornately decorated inner door. Ryoga stepped into the shadows, his boots crunching on the debris of the shifting floor. Fafnir noticed the layout was changing differently this time, and asked if they should leave before things got worse. Ryoga immediately dismissed it, insisting they would clear this place right now. The Dragonian realized there were hidden conditions in the dungeon he didn't know about. Ryoga explained they needed to place tokens on special pillars marked with triangles, circles, and smiling faces. He pointed out that zombies weren't smart enough for this, so they had to do the heavy lifting themselves. He told Fafnir to prepare to run, because the timing this time would be very tight. Suddenly, the entire room began to shake violently, and massive pieces of the ceiling fell like rain. An armored zombie was caught in the collapse, its skeletal body crushed under tons of stone. The system pinged a notification of a lost summon, while Ryoga dashed through the falling debris. He realized the dungeon's transformation was happening much faster than expected. Dust and smoke filled the air as the temple's architecture twisted and crumbled. Ryoga observed the chaos through the dust, desperately searching for the final trigger point. Fafnir yelled that he had found it, his voice nearly drowned out by the terrifying sound of falling stone. He pointed to a stone pillar that was still standing amidst the debris. A giant pillar fell straight toward them, threatening to bury them both. Ryoga cursed under his breath, clutching the bag of tokens as he prepared to lunge. He threw the bag to Fafnir, yelling for him to place the final token. The Dragonian caught the bag while sprinting, his powerful legs driving him across the cracking floor. Fafnir slammed into the base of the final pillar just as the ground beneath him began to give way. He shoved the token into the slot, yelling that it was done. For a moment, everything continued to move, and the dungeon kept disintegrating around Ryoga. He gritted his teeth, wondering why the hell the mark hadn't activated yet. A massive explosion of energy burst from the stone pillars, drowning the room in a blinding white light. Ryoga looked up as a final beam of light shot toward the ceiling, praying it would be enough. Blue runes on the stone pillars flared with power, locking the dungeon's state in place. Beams of energy intersected throughout the room, weaving together into a complex, glowing magic circle. The tremors stopped instantly, leaving Ryoga panting with relief that they had escaped by a hair's breadth. A massive blue magic circle dominated the hall floor, and Fafnir remarked that the path to the underground level had finally opened. Stone stairs filled with rubble led down into the dark, silent depths of the hidden sanctuary. Ryoga and Fafnir walked down to the bottom of the stairs, followed by the summoned zombies, as the Dragonian breathed a sigh of relief. Observing the hidden chamber, Ryoga remained focused, telling his companion that the real battle had only just begun. Fafnir agreed with a determined smile as Ryoga fixed his gaze on their final objective, the dungeon boss. The pair stood before the massive iron doors of the inner sanctum, ready to face whatever lay inside. Above the door was a stone tablet carved with the chilling name of their opponent, Masked Man, Death Guardian. As they stepped into the boss room, Fafnir felt a heavy, terrifying pressure in the air that put him on high alert. Ryoga placed his hand on the cold stone of the door, his black ring glowing as he prepared to enter. He pushed the heavy doors open, looking into the darkness with a cold, determined expression. In the dark, a writhing mass of black tentacles and pale white masks began to stir. The masked man, Death Guardian, emerged fully, its central red eye locking onto the intruders with murderous intent. Fafnir remarked on the creature's grotesque appearance, and Ryoga could only nod in silent agreement. The Guardian's central eye flared with purple energy, gathering power for a sudden, lethal strike. A beam of deep purple mana exploded from the monster's eye, tearing through the floor toward the two of them. Fafnir activates the spirit transformation, Dark Aura, his massive frame enveloped by shimmering energy. The Dragon Man slams his fist down to block the blow, declaring that he will not let the Guardian touch his master. The masked man, Death Guardian, floats behind a complex purple magic circle, its central eye weeping blood as it continues its relentless attack. Ryoga narrows his eyes as he senses a dark presence closing in. A giant magic eye appears behind him, leaving him to wonder if he has just been cursed. Standing before him is the Cayman Jin Death Guardian, a colossal nightmare of masks and tentacles. The porcelain faces on the monster twist into ghastly, mocking grin. Fafnir senses his master's silence and steps forward. He calls out to ensure Ryoga is still focused on the fight. The Guardian shows no interest in talking, promising to grant the intruders a quick death. The central eye begins to glow with a dangerous purple light. At the same time, the protagonist shakes off the influence of the mental attack. Ryoga remains perfectly calm, staring down the massive entity. He brushes off the mental pressure with pure mind and prepares a small surprise of holy power. He strikes the undead boss with unholy blessing, forcing its body to reject its own nature. Fafnir realizes his master has just weaponized holy energy to weaken the opponent. Ryoga signals his summon to take down the monster. The Guardian roars in anger as the holy power begins to burn. It gathers a massive orb of purple energy between its horns. A destructive beam of light tears through the room. Fafnir doesn't hesitate, enhancing his legs with dark aura. He launches himself forward, leaving a trail of darkness behind. The lizard man charges straight through the core of the energy beam. He closes the distance in a flash, ready to deliver a heavy blow. The boss shrieks when it realizes its attack didn't slow him down at all. Fafnir continues his relentless assault, a blur of blue scales and sharp claws. He concentrates mana, turning his fists into iron to increase his force. A powerful punch lands squarely on the monster's thigh. The force of the impact causes the Guardian to stumble backward. Suddenly, strange purple bubbles appear on its skin. Fafnir stops. His body begins to smoke upon contact with the boss. His eyes widen as he feels his body beginning to dissolve. The Guardian's passive skill is literally melting Fafnir's flesh from his bone. Ryoga remains unconcerned, knowing his hybrid power has the perfect counter for decay. He casts Impure Blessing again, instantly regenerating Fafnir's damaged body. With his power fully restored, Fafnir leaps back into the fight. He deploys the 10-hit combo, a blur of motion tearing the monster apart, Every punch lands with brutal precision. He winds up for a final, explosive strike. A massive hole is blown straight through the center of the Guardian's knee. The wound explodes instantly. The monster lets out one final, agonizing scream that echoes throughout the room. It clutches its wound, unable to believe its own curse is ineffective. It attempts one last attack, but the motion is completely pathetic. Fafnir just mocks it, pointing at the giant hole he just created in its knee. He easily dodges the sluggish attack, looking completely bored with the fight. Fafnir narrows his eyes, focusing on the monster's weak point as it recovers from the previous blow. He realizes the monster has begun to regenerate. The lizard man complains that this recovery is truly annoying and asks Ryoga for a new plan. Ryoga just smirks, activates bone control, and says they only need to finish it off with a single blow. As he speaks, the protagonist throws several bone shards that pierce straight into its thigh. The Guardian shrieks in anger, its countless eyes twitching as it prepares to counter. It casts Dark Wave Curse, warning Ryoga that hitting the same spot won't save. Fafnir groans under the pressure of the incoming curse. Ryoga doesn't blink, summoning armored zombies into a defensive formation to shield. The dark energy slams into the summoned soldiers, crushing them instantly. The undead warriors let out one last howl before vanishing into purple smoke. Ryoga takes advantage of the opening to dash through the chaos, moving with surprising speed for a mate. He reaches out, his hand glowing as he prepares to release the final seal. The Retribution Seal is released, spreading across the Guardian's body and locking it in place. Ryoga yells for Fafnir to strike now, while the monster is vulnerable. Fafnir leaps into the air, muscles rippling in preparation for the killing blow. His fist glows with a massive amount of blue mana. He delivers a crushing blow, the impact shaking the entire cathedral. The Guardian is crushed to pieces, its physical body finally collapsing into a pile of darkness. Ryoga stands over the ruins, looking at the notification confirming he just hit level 29. He brushes the dust off his shoulder, satisfied with the 2 levels gained from the boss. Fafnir asks what their main objective is. Ryoga points toward the altar. Church light streams through the windows, illuminating a treasure glowing on the stone. Fafnir is impressed by the aura emanating from the red armor placed on the altar. That is the dragon scale armor, a transcendent-grade growth artifact capable of syncing with the user's mana. Ryoga smiles, deciding he will gladly take this reward for himself. The moment he touches it, the armor begins to transform and wrap around his hand. He wonders if it really only requires physical contact to equip. Layers of scales spread quickly up his arm, fusing with his body accompanied by a stream of purple energy. Stats appear before him, significantly boosting his resistance and speed. Ryoga closes his eyes, imagining the perfect form of the armor so it adapts to his style. The process completes, leaving him encased in a sleek, black dragon armor. Fafnir crosses his arms, looking very satisfied. He says that with this new gear, he doesn't need to hold back in their training sessions anymore. The lizard man explains that he was always worried about hurting his master before, but this armor changes everything. Ryoga stares at him, asking if he's just excited to have a legal excuse to beat him up. The summon smiles awkwardly, insisting his only goal is to make Ryoga stronger. Ryoga decides it's time to leave, and starts walking out as a stream of blue light swirls around. A skill book clatters onto the floor near the boss's ruin. Ryoga stops and looks back, noticing the item that fell suddenly. Outside, the giant dragon statues still stand guard as the gate cracks with energy. The system notification confirms the boss has been defeated, and the gate will close in 3 minutes. The other hunters outside are in disbelief. News spreads quickly that the ancient temple has been cleared unexpectedly. They speculate whether big guilds like Phoenix or Daybreak are the culprits. Yuma spots Ryoga walking out of the gate and runs over. He is relieved to see he's still alive. He tells Ryoga the news about the gate being cleared, only for Ryoga to nonchalantly admit he was the one who did it. The guy is speechless. He can't believe the person everyone is looking for is standing right in front of him. He stands there completely bewildered, trying to process the information. He starts shouting, revealing the protagonist is the one who conquered the Forgotten Temple. Ryoga immediately lunges over to cover his mouth, telling him to keep quiet. The protagonist explains that he hates causing a stir and wants to keep his participation completely secret. He offers to add the boss reward to the final payment as hush money, but Yuma refuses, saying his conscience won't allow him to accept credit for a battle he didn't participate in. Ryoga wonders if the guy intends to ask what the boss actually dropped. The new mask he picked up is a cursed item called the Shadow Mask. He also received a skill book called Thrill of the Hunt, which allows tracking of cursed opponents. Ryoga can't give them these two artifacts, so he plans to compensate them with cash. Meanwhile, Yuma remains determined to refuse, no matter how many times Ryoga asks. A small smile appears on Ryoga's face. They got what they needed, so it was time to head back. In a different development, Naruhito appears at the scene and asks the gathered hunters if they were the ones who cleared the temple. Asaka from the Phoenix Guild appears right after, asking the exact same question. The Daybreak leader points out that if Phoenix had done it, they would have publicized it immediately. He sighs, wondering who could have possibly cleared it. The woman narrows her eyes in thought. An image of Ryoga flashes in her mind, but she quickly dismisses it as impossible. Back in the city, they arrive at an ordinary-looking repair shop. Ryoga and the others walk in, finding the place looking as if it had been hit by a hurricane. An alchemist rushes out in a panic, shouting and asking Ryoga what he has done. Ryoga just looks at him blankly and asks if anyone named Arajiri has arrived yet. Rinya is convinced Ryoga deliberately caused this. Ryoga justifies it by saying he was just trying to help him get a promotion. He is nearly crying, driven mad by the trouble Ryoga's help has caused. People from everywhere are constantly seeking him out to buy potions. His phone vibrates nonstop with messages from customers desperately wanting to buy in bulk. Rinya is on the phone with an incredibly stressed expression as customers have started demanding new potions. He is on the verge of a breakdown. Between filing patents and the mountain of orders, he truly thinks he will die from the workload. Ryoga just stands there watching him pull his hair, casually asking if this sudden popularity is annoying. He shouts that while it's great advertising, the volume is too massive to handle. Ryoga remains cold, saying results are all that matter. He asks for an update. Rinya admits the patent for the intermediate potion has been filed and is almost ready for mass production. Afterward, he hands over a package, saying the special item Ryoga ordered has arrived. Inside is a darkness orb, a rare artifact that significantly boosts mana for dark attribute classes. Ryoga tells Fafnir to stand still for a moment. The lizard man immediately looks suspicious of his master's intention. Ryoga presses the orb into Fafnir's chest, telling him not to be so guarded. The orb begins to glow with savage green energy in Ryoga's palm. Dark mana tentacles lash into Fafnir's body, leaving the summoned creature completely caught off guard. Ryoga explains he is using the orb's power to tighten the bond between Fafnir's soul and the new dragon body. The system notification confirms the Eldritch Dragon completion rate has increased sharply, although it is still incomplete. Fafnir looks at the orb, confused as to why the process didn't just complete in one go. Ryoga gives him a chilling smile, mentioning a small detail. If this orb breaks, Fafnir will truly die. Suddenly, Ryoga lunges and Fafnir's instincts kick in, causing him to react instantly and catch the orb. Ryoga is impressed. The increased synchronization has clearly enhanced the summon's reaction speed. However, Fafnir is more worried about the death contract he just signed. The lizard man clutches the orb to his chest, terrified of even the smallest scratch on this fragile object. Rinya witnesses the scene and calls Ryoga a true devil. Ryoga just smiles. Returning to the hunter recruits, Ryoga asks them to collect magic stones. They are more than happy to help. Ryoga tells them to keep the boss's corpse intact for later use. Yuma asks if he intends to raise it as another undead, but Ryoga has other plans. He wants to craft a golem. This option leaves Yuma a bit surprised. He admits his current level isn't high enough to create high-level undead, so a golem is the next best choice. But to do that, he needs materials and a good alchemist. Rinya behind them shudders involuntarily. Ryoga just reminds him that he already has a top-tier expert in mind. Ryoga smirks. Everything is falling into place. Now he just needs the right material. They arrive at the Flatlands, a lawless ruin known as Ground Zero, where anything is possible for a price. They stop in front of a place called Bar Milky Way. Fafnir asks if he is sure about this shady-looking place. He is here to meet Madame Shuri, a bar owner on the surface, but in reality, a dangerous underworld broker. Ryoga confirms he has business with the manager. Fafnir is surprised. His master has a taste for such rundown bars. As they walk in, it's clear the place has been completely trashed. The bar's neon sign still flickers over the debris. Broken furniture is scattered everywhere. Ryoga realizes a brawl has just occurred and discovers potential clues on the floor. He approaches a man in a suit who has been beaten half to death, lining against the wall. Ryoga looks down at him and coldly asks where the manager is. The man tries to act tough, refusing to reveal information. After a few precise blows, the man's will completely collapses. Battered and bruised, he spills everything. Madame Shuri escaped 30 minutes ago, and his accomplices are hunting her down. Fafnir worries that 30 minutes will make her hard to find. But Ryoga isn't worried. he activates his new shadow mask, triggering the soul chase ability. A glowing purple trail of energy appears, clearly showing the direction she went. Ryoga says simply, "Let's go." Ryoga's skill is active, precisely pinpointing the path of Madame Shuri's soul trail through the city ruin. Madame Shuri was running for her life, panting as she tried to put some distance between herself and her pursuer. Members of a mysterious organization were hot on her heels, shouting not to let her escape. The image of a red spider emblem flashed in her mind, and she couldn't believe an organization that powerful would hunt her down personally. Sweat beads rolled down her face, and she knew full well that offending the red spider was a death sentence. Her eyes darted around in a panic as she realized how serious the situation would become if they caught her. The chase led her into a dead-end alley where several men in suits were already waiting, weapons brandished in their hands. She slid to a stop, discovering that she was completely surrounded by executioners armed with iron pipes and knives. A thug stepped closer, looming over her while she leaned against the cold brick wall, gasping for breath. The group leader, a man with a scarred arm, smiled triumphantly, nodding and remarking that she had certainly made them work to catch her. Madame Shuri glared at him, her face pale, yet her expression remained resilient even while facing certain captors. She pulled out a hidden dagger, mana glowing faintly around the blade, as she warned them not to underestimate her abilities. The leader just mocked her effort, sensing that she was completely out of mana. Despite her wanting strength, she challenged him to step forward and see for himself if she was just bluffing. She stood alone against the crowd, the weight of the situation finally beginning to crush her spirit. She bit her lip in frustration, knowing she had no way to escape this trap on her own. Suddenly, a voice from above cut through the tense air, commenting on the large crowd gathered in such a pathetic place. Ryoga looked down at the scene with a cold, mocking smile, asking the thugs if they were performing an interesting play for Ryoga's appearance caught the whole group completely off guard. However, the purple-haired leader reacted quickly. "Mind your own business, outsider." In that very moment, Fafnir's massive silhouette appeared behind Ryoga, while Ryoga continued, "Oh, turns out you're pretty kind, huh? Even taking the trouble to warn me." Despite witnessing Fafnir's fierce appearance, the purple-haired man became even more enraged instead of showing any fear. "Don't act tough just because you brought a summoned beast along. You guys go take care of it." Hearing that, the underlings immediately grabbed their weapons and lunged toward the protagonist. However, just as they got close, the leader was gifted a punch to the stomach by Fafnir, hurting so much he spewed blood. Following that, he swung his arm and sent two others flying. Then came a direct punch that sent the one who had just lunged at him flying. And the power of the blow was so immense that the wall opposite shattered into pieces. By now, the purple-haired leader had to step in, and within a second, two scorching flames appeared in his palm. Madame Shuri saw this and hurriedly warned, "Be careful." Over there, the flames on the purple-haired man became increasingly intense. "I'll burn you to ashes," he declared before hurling the fire toward Fafnir. Seeing Fafnir's figure engulfed in flames, the remaining underlings smiled as if they saw victory. However, only a few seconds later, the purple-haired man's eyes changed. Because inside the fire, Fafnir's body was covered in a black aura, so he remained unaffected. Seeing this, the purple-haired man's face turned pale, stammering, "No, my fire has no effect. What is going on here?" No sooner had he finished speaking than he took a direct punch from Fafnir. His body flew like a ragdoll, straight toward the wall. After finishing, Fafnir arrogantly dusted off his hands and said, "This world is vast, remember that well." Seeing his arrogant demeanor, Ryoga complained, "Are you done here yet?" He remembered the burn on Shuri's face and whispered to himself. Before he regressed, "So this was the person who caused the burn on the lady's face, I see." He turned to look at Shuri while she was still confused. It seemed she was safe this time. Just then, an uncle suddenly lunged out from the narrow alley. "My lady, I apologize for arriving late. What on earth happened?" Shuri turned her head, not entirely understanding the situation herself. "I'm not sure either. The red spiders suddenly jumped out and attacked us." From Ryoga's perspective, he silently observed the uncle who had just arrived and assessed. "He looks formidable. Is this a bodyguard?" Unaware of his thoughts, the uncle turned to look at the two of them and asked quietly, "And who are those people?" Shuri replied, "I don't know, but they don't seem like bad people." She called out loudly to both of them, "You saved us, thank you very much." Ryoga shrugged and stepped closer. "I came here for a drink, but since I didn't see anyone, I followed you all." Ryoga reached his hand toward Shuri to do something, causing her to step back. However, Ryoga reminded her to stay still. Next, he began using his magic to drain the vitality of his opponent to perform a recovery spell for Shuri, causing her body to heal completely in a matter of seconds. This naturally left Shuri surprised. "Are you a priest?" Ryoga nodded. "Something like that." On the other side, Cronus clicked his tongue and said, "I knew you were using my magic." Ryoga was too tired to argue. "Always knew that. Keep it quiet for a moment." Time passed quickly, and the scene shifted back to the bar. At this point, Shuri asked Ryoga what he wanted to drink, and Ryoga replied that he wanted iced milk. Clearly a drink for children, so Shuri just sighed. "What is this, a new kind of joke? If you don't like alcohol, I can make you coffee." Very quickly, a cup of coffee was placed in front of the protagonist, along with the question, "So, what are you here for?" The male lead didn't want to waste time, so he said it straight. "I want a ticket to the underground auction." This request left Shuri somewhat surprised, but she took out a card. "I'll give you my business card. If you show it to them, no one in this Zone 0, except for the red spiders, will dare to give you any trouble." Then, as if curious, she continued to ask, "By the way, what are you looking for at the auction?" Ryoga answered immediately, "I want a mana engine with an output of 3 stars or higher." His wish sparked a complaint from the redhead. "I'm not sure you'll be able to find that at the underground auction." Hearing that, the male lead's mood sank slightly. "I see, even the auction doesn't have it. Do I have to clear a gate that might drop one? That's really annoying." However, at that moment, Shuri offered him a proposal. "How about this? Why don't you take on a mission?" The system screen quickly displayed a notification. "Client, Madame Shuri. Mission type, gate clearing, difficulty rank C. Reward, MIS4 mana engine. Goal details, clear the ant cave. Entrance is flexible, requires 1 to 3 stars, medium scale. Special note, currently controlled by the red spiders as a source of bloodstone." Ryoga glanced at Shuri, silently marveling. What a terrifying woman. She intends to crush the red spiders immediately after being targeted by them. On her end, Shuri seemed to see through Ryoga's assessment. "Nice try. I only said it wasn't at the auction. I never said I didn't have one." Ryoga laughed. "Haha, are you asking me to take the mission to get revenge on the red spider? The red spiders are a major force around here. If I mess with them, I'll be inviting trouble upon myself." Responding to his words, Shuri gave a wry smile. "It won't be a problem if you wipe them all out. Besides, you need a mana engine, and I want the red spiders to disappear. It's a win-win, right?" Her words had indeed piqued the protagonist's interest. The MIS4 was considered top tier among mana engines, with a maximum output at 5 stars, which was definitely not bad at all. Shuri tempted him by adding that she would give Ryoga an extra 10 kg of arachne silk as a bonus reward. So Ryoga no longer hesitated and agreed immediately. "All right, I'll accept this mission." Seeing him so comfortable, Shuri grew suspicious. "From what I saw earlier, I thought you were rank 3, but is it possible you're even higher than that?" Ryoga replied that he was only rank 1. This statement left Shuri stunned, unable to understand what was going on. Time passed quickly, shifting the scene to the entrance of the ant cave in Zone 0. Just as Shuri had mentioned, this area was being occupied by the Red Spider gang. Not far away, Shuri was also secretly observing the opposition. She drove the sword in her hand into the ground, and immediately it triggered a chain reaction, causing all the short swords previously stuck there to emit a wave that spread everywhere, finally covering the entire area. Unaware of this, a guard took out his radio to contact his people. "The west side is still safe. How is the east side?" However, no one responded to him. At the same time, Fafnir had appeared behind him in a flash. However, he still managed to get out some warnings. "Enemy attack. Quickly contact headquarters. I can't connect. What the hell is going on?" Just like that, very quickly, all the guards were taken down, while Ryoga and Shuri naturally walked to the front of the gate, with Shuri remarking, "Really strong. If it weren't for you, the red spider minions would have been wiped out in the blink of an eye." Shuri ignored the compliment and asked, "Are you really intending to go in alone without forming a party? Be careful in there." Ryoga laughed, affirming that he would be back in no time.